Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. But what about next year? It was treating the symptom, not the root cause, and had no meaning. It would be better to let the government department below accumulate defense experience against the Aqua Laguna to better reduce its destruction to the Sea Train research base. Even if there were certain losses in this process, that was the tuition fee they had to pay, or they had to come up with a permanent solution. Looking at Water 7 being ravaged by the super tsunami, fell into deep thought again. After a long while, he stroked his chin and muttered in a low voice. I remember Fishman Island's air reservoir can create a double-layer bubble large enough to cover a city. Since that thing can withstand 10,000 meters of water pressure, defending against this great tsunami should be no problem, right? Im's somewhat immature idea was to replicate or renovation an air reservoir suitable for Water 7. We can have someone ask Fishman Island about it. They should have a lot of files and technicians over there. After all, that thing definitely needs maintenance. Chapter 305, The Underworld's Birdcage. Far away in the Tato Land Kingdom in the New World, it had recently become particularly lively, especially for the residents living on the capital Whole Cake Island, who felt it deeply. Because at the port, many foreign ships suddenly appeared, and some foreign faces were seen wandering the streets. Big Mom is holding a tea party again. This was the first thought of the residents, as they were already used to it. It happened basically once a year, but the time for this one was set a bit strangely. It was actually January 1st of the new year. It seemed like it used to be held in June or July before. After all, only the flower country in the Sea Star world had a traditional festival like the Spring Festival. That's right. Today was January 1st, Marine Calendar 1499. The era of the Pirate King Gul D. Roger had finally completely turned a new page. They're here, they're here. TSK, 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 all familiar faces. Lower your voice, these are big shots from the underworld. Watch your life. TCH. This is Whole Cake Island. What can they do? Many men and women were gathered on both sides of the main street, their gazes fixed on the big shots walking over from the port. Although they had seen them many times before, it was still interesting to watch, as they only got to see them once a year. Feld, the Loan Shark King. As the name suggests, his main business is lending at high interest rates. He is the controller of currency circulation in the underworld. Morgans, not yet 30 years old, the newly promoted president of the World Economic Journal. His main business is gathering various news and publishing newspapers, controlling all sorts of intelligence in the New World. Gibberson, the Storage King. He controls most of the good sources and nearly 70% of the warehouses in the New World. Many things prohibited by the world government can be bought from him. Picaro, the Assassin King, nicknamed Big Hand Undertaker. He is a true monster who has killed his way out of a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. The aura of death on him is extremely thick. And Amit, the Shipping King. He controls the sea transport industry in the New World, and even Paradise. His influence is said to spread across the entire planet Sea, and the number of ships he owns is reportedly more than the world government and the Marines combined. Interestingly, currently, there is no single king who governs the entertainment domain, meaning the red light districts and pleasure streets in various places in the world are still in a state of self-governance. There's no helping it, this is pretty much all the entertainment there is in this world. However, Tesoro's various song and dance live broadcasts have greatly enriched the entertainment industry recently. Whoosh, 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 bang, bang, bang. Suddenly, sharp whistling sounds rang out, followed by bursts of fireworks exploding in the clear sky. This act of setting off fireworks in broad daylight is something only Big Mom has been able to keep up for a few years. Of course, she just wanted to make the tea party more lively. Inside Whole Cake Chateau, Charlotte Linlin, sitting on the throne, listened to the fireworks outside and grinned, revealing a terrifying smile. It seems they've arrived. Prospero held his candy cane staff and said with a chuckle. In that case, our decades-long relationship with the underworld is completely severed, Mama. It doesn't matter. You already know about the Stargate and the other world. The future is destined to be the great era of the world government. Let these so-called Darkness Kings be the gifts Mama sends up. They're weighty enough. Charlotte Linlin sneered repeatedly, then turned her gaze to the triplet brothers beside her, Charlotte Katakuri, Daifuku, and Oven. At that time, you will be responsible for dealing with them. Don't embarrass Mama. Yes. Charlotte Katakuri stood with his arms crossed, expressionless. Leave it to us, Mama. Daifuku and Oven shouted in unison. Charlotte Linlin nodded in satisfaction. She had great confidence in these sons, then looked at Prospero with a puzzled expression. Speaking of which, where is that celestial dragon's brat? He said he wanted to look around and left on his own, but it shouldn't delay the main matter, right? The latter hesitated a little. He really didn't have much confidence in the reliability of the celestial dragons. That would be best. Charlotte Linlin let out a cold snort, swallowing the harsh words in her throat. Naturally, she wouldn't have any reservations before, but now that she had affiliated with the world government, even she had to be wary of the celestial dragons. All right, go out and prepare. They should be arriving at the plaza soon. Yes, Mama. At the same time, Amit and Gibberson, following the rules of previous years, completed a simple inspection in front of a talking pink gate, then walked one by one into the plaza specifically used for holding the tea party. The Storage King, who walked in first, looked at the empty plaza in surprise. Before, round tables and chairs would be set up here in advance, with various silver wine platinum lead cutlery on them. This situation was also noticed by Feld, Morgans, Amit, Picro, and others who walked in subsequently. The Lone Shark King Feld asked doubtfully. Has the location of the tea party changed? Possibly, maybe it's going to be held inside that whole cake chateau? The Shipping King Amit looked towards the giant cake in the distance. That's great. I haven't seen what it looks like inside. I can take a few pictures then. That would count as interesting news. The president of the World Economic Journal, Morgans, touched the camera hanging on his chest and laughed with great excitement. Suddenly, a characteristic fa-fa-fa-fa-foo laughter rang out, causing everyone present to stop their discussion and look up at the sky in confusion, following the sound source. They saw a blond young man wearing red capri pants and a pink feathered coat, with sunglasses on his face, standing arrogantly midair, looking down at them. He had an overly arrogant and wild smile on his face. Have you finally arrived, kings of the underworld? Meeting all of you is truly quite difficult. The Lone Shark King Feld was confused again. Who is this brat? A newcomer who was invited? At this moment, Morgans and Amit said in unison. Da Flamingo. After speaking, the two exchanged glances. It wasn't strange for the former to recognize him, but what about the latter? Amit just snorted with a cold face. This brat has been snatching my sea transport business recently. He's basically taken over the North Blue. As soon as these words came out, the others understood that there must have been a conflict between the two sides before, and this Shipping King had not successfully dealt with the other party. He's also a celestial dragon's, although his identity was stripped a long time ago, but... Morgans made an expression that implied you know what I mean. So that's it. The other Darkness King suddenly understood. At this moment, the Assassin King Picaro looked at Doflamingo, who was still standing above them, and said with a playful smile. So even if we kill him, it won't be a big problem, right? He really hadn't killed a celestial dragons before, but he had wanted to kill one for a long time just to see. Doflamingo raised his palm while meeting the gaze of the big-hand Undertaker, who was covered in deathly aura and killing intent, revealing an unmistakable look of disdain in his gaze. Fa-fa-fa-fa-foo, where does a dead man get such a big mouth? Among you, your value is the lowest. The next moment, from his palm, countless strings erupted like a volcanic eruption, continuously shooting upwards into the midair. This caused the expressions of the Darkness Kings below to change drastically. This bastard actually dares to make a move here? This is Big Mom's territory. In the blink of an eye, after these thousands of transparent strings erupted to a certain height, they scattered down to the ground like a meteor shower, forming a huge arc-shaped cage from the sky to the ground, enveloping the entire plaza, including whole cake chateau. Immediately after, Charlotte Katakuri, Charlotte Daifuku, and Charlotte Oven slowly walked out from the left, right, and rear directions. Only the direction where whole cake chateau was located was empty, but... Welcome to my birdcage, and your birdcage, little birds from the underworld. Doflamingo stepped on the strings so thin they were invisible, spread his arms, and laughed wildly. Fa-fa-fa-fa-foo. Chapter 306, Pluton Blueprint. Lord Amu, the birdcage tea party plan has been successfully completed. The new president of the World Economic Journal, Morgans, Storage King Gibberson, Shipping King Amit, Lone Shark King Feld, and others were captured alive. Assassin King Pacums was accidentally killed by Doflamingo. On the top floor of Noah's Ark, Im sat on the empty throne, the purple golden resting on his lap, listening to the submissive report from the golden den mushi on the armrest. Not bad. Make Morgans reveal the location of the World Economic Journal's airship. From now on, the world's largest newspaper agency must be controlled by the world government. As for this new president, if he's willing to obey, arrange a position for him in the press agency. Im believed this Birdman's value was second only to it. Taking over the World Economic Journal would not only ensure the propaganda department, recently established by the Proclamation Government Institute, would no longer lack personnel, but also significantly enhance the world government's intelligence control over the Sea-Star world. Feld is useless, dispose of him. Gibberson, make him hand over all warehouse locations and supply channels he controls. If he's willing to comply, find him a suitable job in the administrative department. As for the last one, the shipping king, confiscate all shipyards, shipwrights, and ships under their family. Then, give 30% to the Flamingo Shipping Company founded by Doflamingo. Also, no matter what, you must extract the information about the White Dragon. When saying this last sentence, Im appeared very serious. This White Dragon is equivalent to an undersea super high-speed channel that already exists within Planet C. If it can be utilized well, then no matter the distance, it can essentially achieve true depart in the morning, arrive in the evening. Yes, I shall strictly obey your imperial will. The golden den mushi replied respectfully. Ending the call, Im remained seated on the empty throne, resting his chin on his right hand and gazing pensively at the sky outside the palace. After witnessing the Aqua Laguna firsthand that day, he ultimately chose to leave directly. After all, Water 7 had just suffered a major disaster, was dilapidated everywhere, and urgently needed repairs. His grand arrival at such a time would not only cause trouble but also offer nothing to see. It's just that the Dark King design blueprint in Mr. Tom's hands is a bit troublesome. This item definitely needs to be in the world government's hands, but the Sea Train research project is also extremely important, so forcefully demanding it from him is somewhat inappropriate. When the research base was officially completed and Tom's workers were about to be relocated, some personnel who had secretly received orders considered finding the design blueprint along the way. However, moving other things was fine, but only with the ship-related research data was Tom absolutely determined to organize it himself, strictly forbidding anyone else from interfering, not even Iceberg or Frankie. However, his attitude confirmed to him, the 5 elders, and others that the Dark King design blueprint was most likely among those ship data files. The problem now is to find it among the vast amount of document and then take it out silently. This difficulty seems a bit high. Ah, I've got it. Im's eyes suddenly lit up. He thought of someone's ability that was very suitable for this kind of petty theft. He immediately picked up the golden den mushi's handset and issued an order to the 5 elders. 2 days later. Outside Water 7, at the shore dock of the former Scrap Island, now the Sea Train research base, a slender man with an afro, wearing a black suit and leather boots, holding a purple cane, stepped off the government ship with elegant strides. This person not only wore white gloves on both hands but also a white mask covering his face, appearing very mysterious. He was seen walking into the base building alone. The Marine soldier responsible for security along the way seemed to have received prior notification, as no one stepped forward to question him. He walked all the way to the office on the top floor and then gently knocked on the door. Knock knock knock, please come in. Sitting behind the office desk inside was Jerome, the Vice Director of Maritime Affairs Department of the Administrative Department, who also served as the base commander of the Sea Train research base. He had neatly stacked the document on his desk to the side, his fingers interlaced in front of him, quietly watching the black-suited masked man walk in. I am Brooke of Cypher Pol 9, pleased to make your acquaintance. The latter let out a peculiar laugh as he sat down on the chair opposite the former. That's right. It was indeed Brooke, who had become the second world superstar after Tesoro. Since only his stage name, Soul King, was publicly known, not many people knew his real name. As for that afro, one can only say there are quite a few afros in this world, especially with the mask and gloves providing concealment. Even Vice Director Jerome in front of him didn't recognize Brooke's identity. I already know your purpose and have prepared the relevant files. But I must warn you, under no circumstances are you allowed to harm Mr. Tom or any technician. Also, it's best not to be discovered by Mr. Tom. We don't want to have a major conflict with him, understood? Jerome looked coldly at the white mask on Brooke's face and said in a deep voice. He was currently the base commander here, and the Sea Train project was directly linked to his future government affairs achievements. He absolutely would not allow these butchers, who only knew assassination, to mess things up. Rest assured, I'm just looking for something, I'm not here to kill, alright, remember what you said. Hearing Brooke's answer, Jerome's expression softened slightly. At the same time, he took out a floor plan map of the base from a drawer and pointed to a spot with his pen. This is Mr. Tom's workers, and there are 4 bookshelves placed here. The second bookshelf from the right contains all the ship design blueprints and relevant files of ships he has built to date. You can focus your search there. Thank you very much, then I shall take my leave. Brooke looked at the map twice, engraving it deeply in his mind. Then he stood up again and smiled. Next, I need to take a look around the environment here. Alright, the identity I've arranged for you is senior political protection personnel. Except for the highly confidential research room, studio, and meeting room, you can move around freely in other areas. These words left Brooke speechless inwardly. He thought to himself. You call this being able to move around freely? But he still said nothing. After thanking him, he turned and left the office. The rest of the time was spent familiarize himself with the environment, mainly understanding the location of Tom's workers and the surrounding situation. When the night was deep and quiet, and only a few watch-duty Marines remained in the base, Brooke sat cross-legged on the bed in a room and closed his eyes. Although his eyes couldn't be seen at all because he was wearing a mask, even without the mask, his eyes would just be hollow. The next moment, a faint green radiance bloomed from his body, followed by a skull-shaped green phantom image floating out. This was the Paramja Yami Yami no Mi ability, soul out of body. Relying on being a soul body, Brooke ignored the layers of obstruction along the way, silently passing through walls and doors, easily arriving inside Tom's workers. The work that followed was relatively tedious. He first checked the drawers in the office desk, small cabinets, and even the inner layers of the sofa. After confirming there was no gain outside, he began searching according to Vice Director Jerome's reminder, starting from the second bookshelf from the right. Searching for the Dark King design blueprint. He had already obtained basic information about Dark King from the world government, so he could identify it as long as he found similar content. Even so, finding a design blueprint specifically hidden by Tom among these dense data file was not an easy task. Fortunately, there were only 4 bookshelves in the end, not a vast library. When the night passed and the sky outside the window just showed a hint of fish-belly white, Brooke finally found a document consisting of dozens of pages of dark yellow rough paper, which looked like an old thing at first glance. I found it. Flipping through it and seeing the word Pluton, various size data, and illustrations inside, Brooke's mood was very excitement. The next matter was simple. He put the design blueprint back in its original position, remembered the location, and then waited for night to fall to take pictures of it page by page using the camera Den Mushy. Meanwhile, over at Noah's Ark, Gil Tesoro walked out of the palace behind him, trembling all over. Cold sweat covered his forehead. It wasn't until the morning breeze blew on his face that he finally came to his senses. King of the Celestial Dragons. Lord Amu. 7 Warlords of the Sea. Golden Emperor. Accompanied by the sound of his murmuring, Tesoro's mind still retained the image of those golden ripple eyes and a suffocatingly heavy air pressure sensation. Tesoro, what's wrong? At this moment, Stella, who had been waiting outside, quickly ran over to support Tesoro and asked anxiously. The latter, however, forced a somewhat unpleasant smile and comforted her. It's nothing, I've just been taken under the wing of Lord Saint Narona. This is a good thing. My knees just hurt so much. Chapter 307, Big News and Teach. A. In the office building belonging to the Proclamation Government Institute within the World Government new headquarters. A human form white bird wearing a black top hat with a red feather stuck in it sat slumped in his workstation cubicle, sighing with his golden beak wide open. He paid no attention to the files on the small table. He was Morgans, who just a few days ago was the renowned king of intelligence in the underworld and the president of the World Economic Journal. Now, he was just a small clerk in the propaganda department news agency. As for the World Economic Journal, it had, of course, been taken over entirely, but it was said that the distribution of the World Economic Journal would not be affected, and everything would continue as usual. If there was anything else worth mentioning, it was probably that he was actually a human. He was just an ability user who had eaten the animal system, bird fruit, albatross form. Compared to his human form, he preferred to live his daily life in his beast human form. He was truly frustrated with his current plight and had been sighing constantly these past few days. But what could he do? He chose to accept the world government's recruitment when faced with a death threat. However, when it came to news work that he couldn't control and whose content he couldn't decide, Morgan still held a resistance mentality. He still couldn't understand why Big Mom would obey the world government's order, even going so far as to sell out the entire underworld. Little bird, the warden is calling you. Just then, a colleague walked over and shouted at him, which greatly displeased Morgans. I'm not a little bird. Call me by my name. Don't you have any manners? Hey, the other person laughed dismissively. Morgans glared at him angrily, then stand up and strode towards the warden's office, pushing the door open and entering with his wing-like hand. "All right, what is it?" Perhaps accustomed to being a big shot, he was impolite even when facing his direct superior. Without waiting for the warden to speak, he sat down in a chair. Fortunately, the warden of the press agency didn't mind. The staff below might not recognize Morgans, but he certainly did. "The higher-ups have decided that you will be responsible for the front-page headline and home-page copy for the next issue. Here are the related information, take a look." Seeing his superior push a document towards him, Morgans frowned and reluctantly picked it up. However, as he opened the first page and quickly scanned the content, his pupils trembled violently. This made him immediately perk up his spirit and carefully read the content. The world government wants to designate all the countries and islands in the whole world as affiliated countries. But the heavenly tribute can start being paid after the next reverie. Just as Morgans was marveling at the grand gesture and flipping to the second page, his giant, long beak suddenly dropped open in shock. He felt as though his 3 views had been shattered by the content. My God, not only Big Mom, Whitebeard, Golden Lion, World Destroyer, and Chen Zhao have joined the world government? And Kaido, Bullet, Crocodile. What? Big Mom's Tato Land Kingdom is affiliating with the world government and getting a seat at the reverie? Whitebeard wants to found a nation? And affiliate with the world government? And also get a seat at the reverie? Has this world gone mad, or have I gone mad? In other words, from now on, there is no underworld, no 4 emperors. What happened? Why? I heard you really like making big news. Is this news big enough? The somewhat plump warden of the press agency said with a smile like a Maitreya Buddha. Morgans fell silent. He knew that if he accepted this mission, it would mean abandoning his principles, and he would truly become the world government's lackey from now on. But this news was so big and round, it was too appealing, wasn't it? A day later, tens of thousands of news coups, carrying stacks of still-warm newspapers on their chests, flew out in all directions from the top of the Red Line. The scene was quite spectacular, like a heavenly maiden scattering flowers. Soon, thanks to the diligent efforts of these news coups, the latest issues of the World Economic Journal appeared in the hands of countless people. The first to get their hands on them were certainly the kingdoms and islands on the Grand Line. In the first half, in the Alabasta Kingdom, the young King Cobra sat on the throne in the main hall with a serious expression, holding the newspaper he had just finished reading. His gaze looked towards Mary Joyce, his heart filled with complicated and heavy feelings. Global affiliation, and successfully recruiting those great pirates. Although he didn't know what the world government was planning to do, one thing was certain, the world government's prestige would reach its absolute peak in the world. Would this be a good thing? At the same time, as the newspaper's spread range grew wider, exclamations soared one after another on various islands. It was like a mental shockwave that kept expanding, sweeping across the major seas. Whitebeard, Golden Lion, Big Mom have surrendered to the world government. The 4 emperors of the New World have been swept away. Verndai World has become an army general? Clearly, compared to global affiliation, the recruitment of these great pirates was more eye-catching to the people. This was also the effect the propaganda department wanted to achieve. Using the popularity of Whitebeard, Edward Newgate and the others to suppress the discussion frequency of global affiliation, allowing it to transition completion naturally. As long as the majority of the citizens didn't have large-scale resistance and opposition, then the royalty and nobility alone wouldn't be able to cause any waves. Even if there were, they could be replaced at any time. In the New World, the Whitebeard pirates had returned to Peach Blossom Spring Island. They had been notified that administrative officials and construction teams from the world government would arrive soon. The former's mission was to teach them how to manage a kingdom, while the latter would build some kingdom-essential buildings and facilities. Now this old man has completely lost face. From now on, there will be no more Whitebeard, the world's strongest, only the king of the Whitebeard kingdom who chose to bow his head. Edward Newgate lay on a patch of lush grass court, feeling depressed. The latest newspaper was placed beside him. Marco and the others in the distance saw their old man like this and didn't want to disturb him. Damn it, how could he do this? How could he just be recruited like that? In the crowd, Marshal D. Teach slightly lowered his head to hide his angry gaze. If the Whitebeard pirates were gone and no longer adventuring, where would he find the opportunity to get the dark fruit? No, I can't waste time here. I must find a way to leave this place. He had actually considered how low the possibility was of finding a devil fruit somewhere in the vast sea, the infinite world. It might be better to honestly stay here and be a good son for the rest of his life. But the unwillingness in his heart was so painful. If it were like before, voyage while waiting, he would have nothing to say. But now they were completely staying in one place. So he wanted to leave. He really had no interest in playing any nation-building game. However, an unexpected event occurred again. When the world government's fleet arrived at Peach Blossom Spring Island, the high-ranking official leading the fleet first introduced the various upcoming nation-building plans to Edward Newgate and his sons. Finally, he suddenly looked at Teach, who was standing behind the crowd, looking unhappy. "We heard that Mr. Teach's physique is quite special, and he doesn't need to sleep every day. Therefore, the Medical Academy wants to give Mr. Teach a full-body examination to see if they can cure this symptom of his." Edward Newgate, Marco, Jazu, and the others were stunned. All their gazes focused on Teach. They had actually known for a long time that his body was an anomaly. Being watched so intensely by so many people, Teach felt very uncomfortable. For years, he had kept a low profile, not contending or snatching anything, not seeking attention, but now he suddenly became the focus. However, he quickly reacted, greatly rejoicing in his heart. Wasn't this an opportunity to leave? "Teach, you decide for yourself. Do you want to get examined?" After hesitating for a moment, Edward Newgate decided to give the right to choose to his son. "Old man, I agree." Marshal D. Teach answered loudly, then put on a surprised look and smiled. "I haven't wanted to live like this, unable to sleep, for a long time. If it can really be cured, then I'll be a normal human like everyone else." But what he was thinking in his heart was that once he got on the world government's official ship, he would find a way to leave, whether by sneaking away, jumping into the sea, or forceful departure, anything would do. However, around 6 in the afternoon, Teach, carrying his package, arrived at the dock with his partner seeing off him harmoniously and happily, ready to board the ship. There, he saw a familiar Marine officer standing on board. At this time, the high-ranking official introduced them. "Next, Vice Admiral Aokiji will be responsible for the escort. You should all recognize him, right? He is a Navy Admiral candidate and can absolutely guarantee Mr. Teach's safety throughout the journey." Teach. Chapter 308, The Military Power of the Demon Slayer World. Area RL 1995 of the Red Line, Alien Strategy Committee Headquarters. This place, which gathered excellent officials and talent from various departments of the world government, had now fallen into an atmosphere of extreme busyness. Discussions and arguments rose and fell in the various offices and meeting rooms, completely unstoppable by the thin walls and doors. Even in the corridors, everyone's face was hurried. Although no one was making a loud fuss, the rapid footsteps were dense enough. This was because as the chairman increased the number of Cypher Pol exploration personnel, all sorts of intelligence about Japan in the Demon Slayer world were pouring in almost non-stop. Writing reports, photo reports, footage reports, and even physical objects were flooding in large quantities. The information volume was so vast and rich that it was simply incomparable to that of the Kubenrai world, forcing the other World Strategy Committee to absorb more talent from other departments. On the highest floor of the headquarters building, there was a meeting room exclusively for the committee members. At this moment, Chairman Fernandez, Bulwer Gabriel, Marlon Wilfred, Hobson Samuel, and the 5 vice-chairmen including Kong Ming were gathered together. Most of their attention was no longer focused on demons or the Demon Slayer Corps, because they found that besides Mizunkia Butsuji, who was said to have lived for 1,000 years, the demons seemed to pose no great combat power threat to their side. In comparison, the military power of the various countries in the Demon Slayer world seemed to have something to them. Lords, the warships in the footage are photos taken back by transponder snails after the exploration personnel found and infiltrated a place called Yokosuka Naval Arsenal, based on information from newspapers. The light in the meeting room was very dim, the only light source being the virtual screen projected onto the white wall by the transponder snail. Standing beside the screen was a young official in a suit with brown-yellow hair, speaking eloquently. "As we can see, the warships in this world are ironclad ships made of metal, powered by steam turbines. Their firepower relies entirely on the gun turrets on the deck. Our relevant departments have estimated the approximate data based on these clear photos. At the same time, their warships are divided into battleships, cruisers, and destroyers." As soon as he finished speaking, the virtual screen beside him automatically switched the screen feed from a bird's-eye view of the naval port to a hand-drawn surface structure diagram of the ironclad ship from various angles. According to the Japanese newspaper content, this warship is called the Mikasa, a Shikishima-class battleship. There are 3 other sister ships of the same type. Its standard load capacity is 26,320 tons, standard displacement is 15,140 tons, it is 215 meters long, 28 meters wide, has a draft of 8.3 meters, and a measured speed of 27.5 knots. In terms of firepower, it is equipped with 2 twin 305 mm main guns, 14 single 152 mm cannons, and 18 single 76.2 mm cannons. What we need to pay the most attention to is the extremely astonishing range of these cannons. According to the newspaper content, The maximum range of the main guns is 13.5 kilometers, and the maximum range of the secondary guns is 16 kilometers, but the specific power is still unclear. Hearing this, the already oppressive atmosphere in the meeting room became even more serious. The 5 chairmen and vice chairmen present all had heavy gazes and brows slightly furrowed. The maximum range of the main guns on our headquarters level marine warships is 2 kilometers, and the broadside secondary guns are even shorter. Vice Admiral Kong Ming, who was a Marine Vice Admiral, said softly. This means that even if our marine fleet could enter the Stargate, facing the warships of this world, we might be sunk directly without even seeing their faces. Chairman Fernandez and the others truly did not expect the gap between the two sides' warships to be so large. In addition, Japan's strength in this world doesn't seem to be very strong. Many newspapers mention countries like the German Empire, Austro-Hungarian Empire, Russian Empire, and British Empire, describing them with the term powerful nations. After listening to the detailed introduction from the subordinate official, Vice Chairman Marlon Wilfred asked in a deep voice. What about the army? For example, their weapons and equipment, and military strength. It didn't matter if the Marines had a big gap, after all, their own marine warships couldn't pass through. The main focus was still on the army. The official heard the inquiry and quickly controlled the transponder snail to switch to a new PPT screen feed. Soon, the projection screen displayed photos of Japanese army soldiers secretly photographed, as well as internal screen feeds of some military bases. To be honest, they were very clear. It was unclear how those people managed to obtain them. The army equipment in this world consists of bolt-action rifles for individual soldiers, as well as 7.7 mm caliber heavy machine guns and cannons around 75 mm caliber. Their level is roughly similar to the Kars Kingdom, Kingdom of Kokkordi in the North Blue, and the Purd Kingdom in the South Blue, but their army scale is larger. Although the military strength of Japan is still unclear, their newspapers list the military strength data of other powerful nations. While not necessarily accurate, it should be fine for reference. For example, the Austro-Hungarian Empire's standing army is 450,000, and Germany's standing army is 500,000. Therefore, Japan's standing army should also be in the hundreds of thousands. Considering the conscription potential during wartime, the average military strength of each country should be over 1 million, perhaps even several million. The chairman fell into speechless contemplation again. Their current thought was roughly how large the population of this other world was. It seems that without using mid to high-level combat power and above, our army will have a hard time defeating the army of this world. Someone sighed. Vice Chairman Marlon, if it's a small to medium-scale local war, our army should still have a great advantage with more powerful weapons and equipment. But if it's an all-out war with all the countries in the entire world, then it's definitely not possible. The young official explained. What about individual soldier quality? Vice Admiral Kong Ming asked again. Excluding the man-eating demons and the Demon Slayer Corps, based on the experiment by the Biochemical Research Institute on the materials secretly captured and brought back, they were surprised to find that the physique of people in this world is similar to that of people in the Kabanrai world, very fragile. We are planning to capture alive 1 man-eating demon and 1 Demon Slayer Corps member. These words made Chairman Fernandez and the others sigh in relief, and smiles also appeared on their faces. If only the low-level combat power is at a disadvantage, it's fine. We can completely dispatch officer-level combat power, or even directly deploy the highest combat power. Vice Admiral Kong Ming shook the feather fan in his hand and smiled and said. But no one knows if this world is hiding even more powerful weapons, and that Miznkibutsuji, and the powerhouses of the Demon Slayer Corps all require further investigation. Everyone has seen that this world is completely different from the Kabanrai world. We must be extremely vigilant. Chairman Fernandez's tone was very serious, speaking both to himself and to everyone present. Chairman, the investigators have learned that Japan issued a sword ban edict a long time ago, so we only need to find people carrying katanas to basically confirm them as members of the Demon Slayer Corps. This matter has been reported to all investigation teams. The young official showed a confident smile. What about those demons? Vice Chairman Bulwer Gabriel asked. He was the oldest here, so he was most concerned about the demons. The number of these man-eating demons doesn't seem to be large. Except for Captain Rasky, the other teams haven't encountered them. However, there are quite a few in Mount Fujisain, and they won't run away. We are preparing to have people secretly capture and bring back 1 or 2. Alright, that's all then. Adjourn the meeting. Yes. Chapter 309, Niche Iron Blade and Trainer. Ding-a-ling, ding-a-ling, the crisp wind chime sound accompanied by the breeze spread through the village's street, attracting the attention of some women, child, and old people who remained at home along the way. As for the young and strong male, they had gone to the fields to work early. Ah, that's a monk. We haven't seen one in this village for many years. An old man sitting lazily by his door, basking in the sunlight, smiled as he watched the loosely robed person wearing a straw hat walk by. This was the first village that Lucci and Mumai had found previously. 15 days ago, after Mumai, Tanjiro, Gushiwen, and others who passed the Demon Slayer Corps final selection finished choosing the Tamihigane used to forge Nichiren blade. Because they needed to leave an address for receiving the blade, they conveniently wrote down village chief Yamana's house, and then returned here accompanied by Gushiwen. And Captain Rasky reappeared, playing the role of a samurai father waiting for his daughter's return and teaching her swordsmanship every day. During break time, Mumai casually held the short sword in her hand, her amber eyes scanning the rooftop, and said in surprise, "Father, that crow seems to have left." Since they were playing roles, she naturally became the daughter. To be honest, for Mumai, who lost her parents from a young age, this experience was very wonderful. Especially since Lucci's personality was very cold and serious. But occasionally, he would show some concern during training, making the feeling of familial emotion even stronger. If Mima Amatori represented an older brother in the child's heart, and Ikumi represented a partner, then Lucci gradually truly became father. Mumai really enjoyed the past few days of life. Too careless. It flew away yesterday afternoon. Our observation period should be over. Lucci sat cross-legged on the stone steps. If it weren't for his Western appearance, his upright posture and sharp gaze were truly no different from a samurai. It turned out that he had long anticipated that Mumai participating in the final selection with an unregistered identity would be exposed, which was why he had been seriously playing the role of a samurai father and daughter these past few days. What he didn't expect was that the Demon Slayer Corps didn't seem to care much about this matter. From leaving Mount Fujigasane until now, no one had came to investigate or inquire. An attitude that as long as you were a person and could kill demon, it was fine. As for the crow that seemed to be trying hard to act like an ordinary bird, but occasionally cast purposeful gaze, that was even simpler. It was discovered on the first day by Lucci, who had an extraordinary sixth sense. It was likely sent by the Demon Slayer Corps. Someone is coming. Lucci suddenly stand up, and then led Mumai towards the courtyard gate. Since village chief Yamana was working in the fields, only the two of them were here. As soon as they stepped out, they saw a figure hidden in a straw hat and black robe slowly walking towards them. "My name is Kogura Sora, I am a swordsmith, responsible for delivering the best Nichiren blade I personally forged for Mumai." As soon as this person spoke, he revealed a somewhat silly temperament, instantly caused the destruction of the deep and solemn atmosphere. Hearing his words, one could guess that he wasn't very old. "I am Mumai, and this is my father." Mumai smiled slightly and gave a simple introduction. Immediately after, Lucci said indifferently with a straight face, "Please come in first. We can talk inside." "No need. The sunlight is very good right now. The first meeting between a Nichiren blade and its master should happen under the brightest sunlight." Swordsmith Kogura Sora raised his head and glanced at the sky, then took down a long saber tightly bound to his back. It was then that Mumai and Lucci noticed that this person was also wearing a strange mask on his face. He really went to great lengths to hide his identity, and they didn't know why. Swish, this mysterious swordsmith directly drew the newly forged Nichiren blade. The blade shone brightly under the most brilliant sunlight. "So beautiful," Mumai murmured to herself. A Nichiren blade is forged by collecting scarlet crimson sand iron and scarlet crimson ore from Sunlight Mountain, which is closest to the sun and receives sunlight all day, then melting them together with Tamihigane and refining them through countless tempering, finally smelting a demon-slaying blade that has absorbed the aura of sunlight. Swordsmith Kogura Sora's voice carried a strong sense of fervent emotion. Immediately after, he handed this Nichiren blade, which looked no different in length from a short sword, to Mumai. "Come, pull it out and see. This Nichiren blade is also called a color-changing blade. It will show different colors based on its master's characteristics." Mumai nodded obediently, held the black sword hilt, and gently drew the blade from the scabbard. Then she widened her eyes curiously, looking at the blade, but found it unremarkable. Suddenly, a faint blue appeared from the bottom of the blade, and in the blink of an eye, under the gaze of the three, it turned into a katana that was entirely black with blood vessel-shaped blue patterns on its surface. "Wow, what a strange and beautiful color. It's the first time I've heard of a blade changing like this. It's a bit like the blue of water breathing, but the entity is black," the swordsmith said, pinching his chin in confusion. But he didn't notice that Mumai and Lucci's gaze had become a little strange, especially the former, who was startled and thought to herself, "This blade is too godlike. Oh right, the head lord asked me to bring you a message." As soon as he mentioned water breathing, swordsmith Kogura Sora suddenly remembered something. The head said, "You two don't need to worry about Mumai not being a rookie swordsman trained by a trainer. The purpose of the final selection is to select child with the aptitude to kill demon. The fact that Mumai could pass the assessment without mastering a breathing style shows that she possesses extremely strong aptitude. This is what we need. However, it is very inappropriate for Mumai not to know a breathing style and swordsmanship. Therefore, I will send a trainer to teach her. Thank you very much for joining the Demon Slayer Corps. After hearing the words from the Demon Slayer Corps head, Lucci and Mumai immediately felt that this person seemed very good, reasonable, and made them feel very comfortable. At this moment, Swordsmith Kodorasor let out a sigh of relief and smiled. I memorized these words for a long time. I finally completed the mission perfectly. I heard that during this final selection, there was also a young boy who accidentally trespassed into Mount Fujikasane. But he self-taught a breathing style and even snatched a Nichiren blade from a Demon Slayer Corps member guarding the mountain edge to kill demon. I have to say, he is also a rare genius. After speaking, he tidied his clothing and gave the child a bow. Alright, everything has been explained. I must take my leave now. Please be sure to cherish this Nichiren blade. Not only because of its special color, but also because it is the first blade I forged as a formal swordsmith. I beg you. Please rest assured, I will definitely take good care of it. Seeing this, Mumai quickly waved her hand and promised. Thank you very much. A moment later, Lucci withdrew his gaze from the swordsmith's retreating figure, then used observation hockey to scan the surroundings. After confirming there were no suspicious bird, small animals, or people, he took out a small transponder snail and contacted the other side in a low voice in front of Mumai. You guys follow that swordsmith and see where he ultimately goes. Understood. As more and more Cypher Paul team entered from the Planet C homeland, basically every team now had another team following them in the shadows. The Japan government of this world definitely wouldn't have imagined that they were constantly being infiltrated by the government of another world. Immediately after, the matter regarding Mumai receiving the Nichiren blade, about to be taught a breathing style by a trainer, as well as the matter concerning Sunlight Mountain and the Demon Slayer Corps head, were also reported by Lucci to the command center. He felt that this trainer was the breakthrough point. Chapter 310, Mizen's Ecstasy. As the saying goes, while one story unfolds, another begins. Gus and Mumai, on their side, had to stay put as they were waiting for the trainer. Meanwhile, Meko, also a member of the Cypher Paul news squad and originally from the Kabanrai world, was currently with Captain Steve Gus, arriving at a place called Joy Town. It's truly peaceful here. It seems the people in this world live very happily. Meko, with her short golden hair, stood by the window in the inn room, gazing intently at the men and women laughing and chatting on the street. Because it was already night, red lanterns were hung everywhere. The gunfire flash they emitted illuminated the town, which wasn't too big or too small, making it quite beautiful. Interestingly, the words extreme joy were written on every lantern. I wonder if the people back in our world can live like this now. Once this mission is over, you can take a leave and go back to sea. I heard the Kabanrai world within Hinamoto have been cleared out by the army. Gus walked into the room, chuckling softly as he looked at Meko's beautiful back. Hearing the sound, she turned her head and asked. The army. How is Lord Biba doing? He's a staff officer in the army staff office. How else would he be? Of course, he's staying at army headquarters. Also, you're no longer a member of the Hunter Guard, so there's no need to call him Lord anymore. Captain Gus pursed his lips, clearly displeased, then changed the subject, saying. I walked around the town. There's a temple called the Eternal Paradise Cult in town. There's nothing special about it. I asked around. Their doctrine is to live happily with a calm attitude, and there's no need to force yourself to do things that make you uncomfortable or cause you pain. It doesn't look like an evil cult at all, and I didn't perceive any special or different from human. Seeing this, Meko merely nodded. She actually sensed the captain's feelings for her, but because she still harbored thoughts of Mima Amatori in her heart, she could only pretend not to notice. I really want to see what this demon that Lucci mentioned is like. Although this world is lively, it's a bit boring. Captain Gus walked over to Meko's side and looked at the night market scene below with her, but she only stayed for a few seconds before naturally leaving the window. This left the former feeling quite helpless. However, just at that moment, both of them turned their heads towards the corridor outside the door almost simultaneously. Someone was walking up the stairs there. The key was that this person's aura was very strong, and there was a rotten, bloody scent. May I ask where you two are from? How about we become friends? I am the leader of the Eternal Paradise Cult, and my name is Doma. Especially the beautiful lady, your hair color is truly lovely. We're practically a match made in heaven. The newcomer leaned lazily against the doorframe, observing Gus and Meko with interest. His appearance was very peculiar, especially his eyes, which were actually rainbow-colored. Coupled with his pure white hair like white oak, his purple hat, and his black and red clothing, he truly gave off a colorful feeling. He was precisely one of the 12 Kazuki under Mizun Kibatsuji, upper rank 2, Doma. He had noticed this pair of strangely ordered man and woman back during the day. He had been suppressing his curiosity until now before coming over. Clearly, in terms of aura, these two were somewhat like demons, but their scent was close to a burned smell. If he hadn't seen them walking in the sunlight with his own eyes, he would have guessed it was due to some kind of blood demon art that caused their aura to become special. So now, it could basically be confirmed that they were human with Meraki blood. Finally. That golden-haired woman, she looks really good. A new type he hasn't eaten yet. You're a demon? Captain Gus felt a little excitement. He didn't expect the target they were looking for to actually come right to them. Since more and more Cypher Pol member poured into this world, the scope of exploration for each team was divided more detailedly. Royalty, government, army, marines, economy, culture, and so on, each industry had dedicated personnel responsible, while they, the new and Cypher Pol 9 agent, were responsible for intelligence related to demons. Hearing this, Doma was startled for a moment. At the same time, he straightened his back and asked in confusion. You're from the Demon Slayer Corps? No, that's not right. Why don't you have blade? Because only those who practice breathing style can smell the aura of demons and distinguish between human and demons. Conversely, although demons can also smell the aura of human, they cannot distinguish between ordinary people and the Demon Slayer Corps. Gus and Mekko exchanged glances. The former spoke. We are not the Demon Slayer Corps, but we cannot be considered ordinary people either. He felt that the other party seemed quite rational, thinking of asking more things through conversation. Not human. But Gus didn't expect that his words would stun Doma. You're not human, so you're demons, but you can move around in the sunlight? How is that possible? Doma's words also revealed the degree of importance he placed on this matter. This gave Captain Gus an idea, and he put on a surprised expression. Is it strange to move around in the sunlight? Saying this, he pointed his right hand towards his side. Instantly, a dark viscous silk thread shot out from his fingertip. It rapidly underwent hardening while flying, piercing through the originally flat wall in the blink of an eye. Blood demon art. Doma's eyes widened, making his rainbow-colored irises even more prominent. He completely confirmed that Gus and Mekko were truly demons. Because human cannot possess this kind of superpower. This matter just got serious. What Captain Gus didn't know was that demons could communicate information through bloodline communication, and the core of this was with Mizun Kibatsuji. This directly resulted in Mizun, who was currently in a wealthy estate in Asakusa City, manifestation as Tsukihiko and playing the role of a good stepfather and successful entrepreneur, instantly crushing the neck and waist of the little daughter who was acting spoiled in his arms, in a surge of emotion. The spraying blood turned the originally clean and tidy living room into a terrifying bloodbath, also stunning his wife Raikitsu, who was preparing dinner in the kitchen. Whoosh! The next second, with a sonic boom, an incomparably fast black shadow pierced through the forehead of the woman, who had no reaction at all. Meanwhile, the entire living room's ground, sofa, the table, counter, various ingredients, and cooking tools in the kitchen were all shattered into pieces by the energy of the sonic boom. By this time, the black shadow that had finished killing had vanished without a trace. Heh, demons unafraid of sunlight, and there are two of them, ha 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 ha. Now I don't need to search for that damned blue spider lily anymore. By simply eating either one of them, I can become a perfect being and live forever and ever without any weakness. Mizun completely disregarded the blood of his daughter on his face, neck, and body, and even less so the small corpse on the ground and his wife's corpse not far away. He just stood there, looking in the direction of Joy Town with ecstasy. Not time. With a command from the Demon King, an open sliding door immediately appeared on the ground before him. Without a second thought, Mizun jumped straight in, disappearing from this tragic place that was originally full of warmth and joy but was now ruined with its family dead. Over in Joy Town. You too, come with me to see Lord Mizun. Doma also understood the seriousness of this matter. He thought to himself, since he was the one who found these two, he would definitely receive praise and rewards later, such as getting more blood. Oh? You know where Mizun Kibatsuji is? Captain Gus was equally surprised and pleased. This Mizun Kibatsuji was a key target that the higher-ups requested they search for. He was about to achieve great merit. Wait. He suddenly realized a big problem. The intelligence from the command center said that Mizun had lived for over 1,000 years, and his combat power might exceed the highest combat power of Planet C. Moreover, regardless of whether Mizun Kibatsuji had admiral-level combat power, since he had lived for over 1,000 years, Gus would most likely not be his opponent. This is bad. Chapter 311, Cypher Pol Agent Battles Upper Rank. You dare call Lord Mizun by his name? Doma looked at him in surprise. After waiting a few seconds, He was even more shocked, covering his mouth and saying in disbelief, "How are you completely fine?" One must know that, according to common sense, all demons originate from Miznkibutsuji's blood. Those who become demons by drinking his blood are afflicted with a curse that forbids them from speaking his name. Once they do, they will die from cell collapse. Why? How did you get rid of the curse? Doma was completely attracted by the various oddities on Gus at this moment, while Captain Gus was contemplating his next operation. He now wanted to know Miznkibutsuji's position, but didn't want to meet him immediately. It seems I can only capture him alive first, then let the interrogation personnel pry out Miznkibutsuji's intelligence. Thinking of this, Captain Guts made a decision in his heart. Boom! Instantly, a gale surged, and the floor and walls cracked on the spot. As this captain-level combat power of Cypher Paul struck decisively, the surrounding air seemed to be instantly sucked dry. In the blink of an eye, Captain Guts appeared in front of Doma. His massive, hardened fist, wrapped in an incredibly oppressive air current, smashed towards those multicolored eyes. The latter's expression changed drastically. He didn't expect this strange demon to suddenly attack, and with such speed and aura. Bang! Just as Doma's legs subconsciously stepped back, his head was struck by the fist, which was like a 1,000-pound heavy hammer. It immediately burst open like a watermelon, and large amounts of blood and meat splattered throughout the room. But his body was still moving backward, seemingly unaffected by the loss of his head. When Gus stopped his steps and stood in the position where Doma had just been standing, the latter's body had already grown a completely intact head again. "Eh? You scared me. Does this mean you don't want to meet Lord Mizn with me?" Doma still maintained that gentle smile, but the words upper rank and 2 appeared separately in his multicolored eyes. In his hands, he also held 2 golden iron fans with pink-purple lotus flowers and green lotus leaves carved on their surfaces, and edges as sharp as blades. As expected, it's just like the intelligence from the command center said. These demons have extremely astonishing self-healing ability. Captain Guts frowned. At this moment, Mekko walked over and reminded him in a low voice. "Captain, then let's tie him up with rope." "That's one way. Since that's the case, let me see the methods of you demons who aren't afraid of sunlight." Doma also couldn't suppress the curiosity in his heart. He forcefully swung the golden fan in his hand in front of him. Immediately, large patches of white frost cold air mixed with sharp ice crystals surged out like a wave wrapped in blades. The floor, beds, walls, and even the ceiling wherever it passed were all frozen into frost. "He's mine. You keep an eye on the surroundings." Captain Guts roared while condensing a purplish-blue energy bullet in his right palm. Without another word, he shot it towards the incoming frost. This thing, compressed with mental energy, actually blew open the entire floor, transforming into an ultimate beam that tore through the air and rushed towards Doma. Boom! 2 fierce strengths collided. The overflowing cold air and energy intertwined and exploded in all directions, causing the entire inn building to crack and explode with a loud noise. Needless to say, the guests inside the inn, the owner, and the waiters were certainly dead. Even the people walking on the street outside were either turned into ice sculptures by the surging cold air or blown away by the purplish-blue energy, directly turning into remains in midair. Ah! With a woman's startling scream, the entire Joy Town erupted in chaos, especially those who were hit in the face by severed limbs or blurred flesh and blood. They were so scared they peed their pants, and everyone fell into confusion, fleeing outwards frantically. But the 2 sides in combat paid no attention to this. Doma was an upper-rank demon who had lived for hundreds of years and eaten countless women, while Captain Guts came completely from another world and was an elite of Cypher Paul. He had no interest in the life or death of these passers-by. Blood demon art, lotus leaf ice. A crescent-shaped ring of frost forced the approaching Captain Guts back. As soon as these frosts landed, they transformed into exquisite lotus flowers, which were very beautiful. This wasn't the end. Doma continued to swing the golden fan in his hand, creating more than a dozen ice vines carved with small ice lotus flowers out of thin air, wrapping around from all directions. He wanted to capture Gus alive. TCH Captain Gus snorted coldly at this, thinking that he was being underestimated. He was just an ordinary ability user, thinking he was something great. Boom! With a loud noise, as he stomped heavily on the ground, a large number of cracks immediately appeared. His entire body almost stretched into an afterimage in the blink of an eye, rushing forward head-on at super speed. But a strange scene appeared. No matter how the ice vines surrounded and intercepted him, they simply couldn't touch the hem of Captain Guts's clothes. He could always avoid all attacks at a very strange angle. What amazing perception ability. Doma looked at this scene with a face full of admiration, while his hand movements didn't hesitate. He had already realized that the opponent's strength was no weaker than his own. Blood demon art, fierce cold white princess. The next moment, Two ice lotus flowers in front of him quickly grew the upper bodies of stunningly beautiful maidens. Although made of ice, they were lifelike. Whoosh! As soon as these two ice maidens appeared, they sprayed a large area of frost-cold air towards Captain Guts, spreading out from the center of the inn ruins, turning the central zone of Joy Town into a world of ice and snow. Captain Guts, being so close, was naturally swallowed without surprise. It seems the combat is over. Doma happily covered his face with his golden fan and chuckled lightly. But the moment a figure rushed out from the rolling cold air, his pupils trembled, and his face stiffened. At this moment, Captain Guts had turned into a strange person whose entire body was pitch black and whose surface shimmered with a metal luster. His speed was extremely fast. Almost in an instant, he used one finger to cut the two ice lotus maidens into crushed ice. "Is this your blood demon art?" Doma muttered to himself, but Captain Guts, who had used full-body armament hockey coating, completely ignored Doma's words. He wanted to finish the combat quickly. Blood demon art, winter ice pillars. Sharp ice spears formed in the air and rained down on him, but it was useless. Captain Guts didn't dodge or evade, letting them pierce his body, then break into scattered residual ice on the ground. How is that possible? Doma's face no longer held any gentle expression. At this time, the inner court was already filled with dense cold air. Logically, whether the skin was touched or the cold air was inhaled, there should definitely be freezing and necrosis effects. But the opponent seemed completely unaffected. Blood demon art, frozen ice, sleeping lotus bodhisattva. This upper rank 2 no longer held back. First, he created 5 small ice persons modeled after himself, letting them go forward to buy him some time. These small ice persons seemed to be able to use the main body's blood demon art. As soon as they appeared, they quickly swung the small ice fans in their hands. Lotus leaf ice. Vine lotus flower. Scattered lotus flower. Frozen cloud. Withered garden hanging snow. In an instant, a variety of ice frost attacks mixed with surging gale and frost fog, like an avalanche, submerged the pitch-black figure. But no matter how fierce an avalanche is, what can it do to someone who can fly? Under Doma's unbelievable gaze, Captain Guts continuously stepped on the air beneath his feet, shooting downwards from the air like a black eagle. At the same time, a thin black string like lightning stuck to Doma's shoulder. As Captain Guts's left hand on the other end pulled hard, he was about to pull the entire person up. In an emergency, Doma quickly cut the string with the golden fan in his hand. Blood demon art, frozen ice, sleeping lotus bodhisattva. He used his special move. An ice bodhisattva, over 10 meters tall, with hands clasped together and 2 ice lotus flowers blooming on its shoulders, appeared in the surging cold air. This ice bodhisattva raised its palm and turned it into a sharp palm blade, slashing towards Captain Guts in the air. At the same time, it opened its mouth and spat out dense ice needles. On the other side, the 5 small ice persons were not to be outdone and once again unleashed various blood demon arts. Tempest kick, wild. Captain Guts snorted coldly. In the air, he swung his 2 legs at high speed, creating a large area of vacuum air current, which instantly turned into dense hotei like a downpour. These hotei were crescent-shaped and emitted blue-white radiance. Each one could tear the air, producing a rapid whistling sound, shattering the incoming ice crystals and frost. The key was that they were endless. Soon, whether it was the 5 small ice persons or the exquisite ice bodhisattva, they instantly turned into large patches of crushed ice. Even Doma behind them was enveloped by the azure rain, instantly suffering 1,000 cuts and being torn into pieces. Just as Doma's body began to quickly self-heal and regenerate, Captain Guts used instant transmission, instantly appearing in front of this pile of flesh and blood from the air. Although I can't kill you, keeping you from moving is no problem. He opened his 2 palms towards the physically incomplete Doma, and 2 large nets made of black strings shot out from his palms, binding him tightly from top to bottom, and then quickly hardening these strings. In this way, it was equivalent to Domo being sealed in a thick can as hard as steel, and it was the kind that was completely stuck to his body. It was impossible for him to make any movements. Let's go back. Captain Guts carried this thing and shouted towards Mekko, who was not far away, holding a visual den mushi and transmitting the combat footage back to the command center. Yes. Without a word, Mekko followed Gus and moved at high speed towards the Stargate's position. 3 minutes later, Mizen Kibutsuji, dressed in a suit and leather boots, appeared in this battlefield ruin full of frost, looking with a grim expression in the direction Captain Guts and Mekko had left. Doma is such a waste, he couldn't even hold them off for a few minutes. Why does the protagonist of a behind-the-scenes novel always have to appear in the foreground? The framework I envisioned for this novel is very clear. The world government and the world gather all their combat power, military power, financial resources, and resources to open stargates and conquer the multiverse. The main protagonist is the world government itself. This protagonist's greatest trump card is behind the scenes and will only come to the foreground when facing powerhouses that the world government cannot handle. Also, Im's appearance in the novel is already very young. It is logical for Whitebeard, who is 40 or 50 years old, to see him and think he is a young brat. What kind of plot hole is that? Whitebeard is not a selected 7 warlords of the sea. Why should Im actively reveal his identity to him? Isn't it better to let him guess and understand bit by bit? I am clearly telling everyone here that Im will not reveal his identity publicly in a short time. The only people who can know his identity are the 5 elders and the 7 warlords of the sea. Chapter 312, The Small Cheat Im gave among the upper ranks. Mizn had the worst impression of Doma. This was because his personality was very unsuited for a demon, and he even started something called the Eternal Paradise Cult. Back then, Mizn had warned Doma about this, telling him not to let the cult become too ostentatious. This was also the main reason why the Eternal Paradise Cult's influence never spread beyond Joy Town, and its official followers numbered only around 250. Now, Doma was defeated and captured by the opponent just a few minutes before he arrived, which made Mizn's view of him even worse. If this bastard isn't dead later, I'll kill him myself. What's the point of keeping useless things? Although Mizn cursed him, his apprehension towards Captain Steve Gus did not decrease in the slightest. He knew very well the value of Doma as upper rank too. Even the weakest upper rank demon required 2 Hashira from the Demon Slayer Corps to team up against, and even then, victory wasn't guaranteed. And that demon who wasn't afraid of sunlight was able to defeat Doma within 5 minutes, indicating that the opponent's strength might be comparable to upper rank 1 Kokushibo. This was very troublesome. Kokushibo's strength, if not for being controlled by his blood, would require considerable effort even for Mizn himself to fight against. Moreover, Mizn Kibutsuji's extremely cautious personality made him seriously suspect that the demon who defeated Doma had not yet shown their full strength. If that were the case, then the opponent's true strength might be comparable to his own. What exactly are they? Are they really demons? Impossible, all demons originate from my blood, but I can't sense them. Mizn stood on the ruins covered in ice and corpses, looking up at the bright moon in the night sky, hesitating. At this moment, the appearances of Gus and Mekko seemed to float before his eyes. That's right. The two of them don't look like Japanese people. Could they be something from overseas? If they aren't demons, but something else, would eating them still be useful? Carrying this doubt in his heart, Mizn Kibutsuji returned to the magnificent and luxurious Infinity Castle by ordering Notheim. Gather all the 12 Kizuki. Regardless, he decided to capture Gus and Mekko first. Whether they were useful would be known once they were eaten. He might as well use these subordinates to test them out. Facing the possibility of solving his weakness to sunlight, Mizn was happy to risk the direct subordinates he had cultivated over the past few hundred years. As long as the goal was achieved, what did it matter if they were all sacrificed? Nothing was more important than him becoming a perfect creature. At the same time, at the foot of Mount Fuji, in the vast Okigahara forest, the depths of this place, known as the Suicide Forest by many Japanese, were already showing signs of activity from many humans and various artificial objects. This was the base built by the world government from another world, centered around the Stargate. To avoid attracting the attention of the Japanese government, and also due to orders from above, the construction department did not undertake large-scale construction here. They merely cleared some trees within a 50-meter radius, leaving enough space to move around, and then used this timber combined with large trees to form an outer wall. As for living quarters, wooden houses and tree houses were built directly on the tree trunks, all for the sake of concealment. In terms of security, surveillance and denmushi were placed in hidden spots, while army soldiers holding automatic rifles guarded the open areas. From time to time, a few figures flashed past at high speed. However, with the base not yet built into a fortress, this was all they could do. The main facilities were a simple biochemical safety station and a 2-story small building not far away with its rooftop covered in thick shrubs and vegetation. This small building housed many transponder snails and technicians. They were responsible for transmitting, receiving, and relaying transponder snail signals, reporting the various forms of intelligence sent by the exploration personnel to the command center on the Sea Star mainland, or relaying orders from the command center to each exploration squad. The combat screen feed between Captain Gus and Doma, previously recorded by Mekko, had already been transmitted through here to a projection screen in the Otherworld Strategy Committee. Report: this is the Otherworld Combat Power Evaluation Agency's evaluation report on Doma. A young staff member in a suit walked into the committee meeting room and placed a document containing 3 pages in front of Chairman Fernandez. All right, you may leave. Yes. After the former quickly left, this big shot, who was also the chief of staff of the Supreme Executive Committee, expressionlessly flipped through the document's content. After reading it, he looked up at the four vice chairmen and asked, "Would you like to take a look?" "I don't need to." The live broadcast screen feed earlier was very clear. Kong Ming indifferently waved his feather fan. With his eyesight as a Marine Vice Admiral, he could tell Doma's level at a glance. Simply put, he was a Parimsh's system ability user with extremely strong self-healing ability. His strength, speed, and other combat aspects appeared to be below the level of a 10 million Bailey bounty. Considering everything, he was likely a character worth around 30 to 40 million Bailey. His self-healing ability and the cold air reported by Captain Guts were the main difficulties, requiring armament hockey for defense or holding one's breathing to prevent invasion. Despite this, he was only at the level of a headquarters lieutenant colonel. With an Ichiran blade, perhaps any headquarters lieutenant commander could defeat him. Of course. Considering the frail physiques of these otherworlders, it was quite impressive that this Doma possessed such strength, and he was worthy of praise. However, Kong Ming not needing to see the evaluation report didn't mean the other three vice chairmen from the Administrative Department and the Ministry of Justice didn't need to. Just as they were quickly flipping through the pages, Chairman Fernandez himself took out two folded documents and handed them to Kong Ming, who was seated to his right-hand side. "Take a look at this." Kong Ming took it, puzzled. The moment he unfolded it, a look of surprise immediately appeared on his face. He glanced at what was written on it. Headline, Mizun Kibutsuji. Life story, born in Japan's Han era, he was born as a stillborn infant. Later, a doctor used a certain prescription to extend his life and treat him, but due to the worsening of his condition during the process, he accidentally killed the doctor, causing the treatment to be interrupted. He could only survive with a demon body, becoming the progenitor of demons. Goal, find the last main ingredient, the blue spider lily, in the prescription to eliminate his fear of sunlight or find other methods. Personality, cautious, even timid. If severely injured once, he might hide for over 100 years. Physique, immortal and ageless. Compared to other worlders, he possesses a stronger and tougher physique, has 5 brains and 7 hearts distributed throughout his upper body. He can freely change his appearance, gender, and scent. He has the ability to completely transform into anything visible to the naked eye and can distinguish genetic differences by consuming blood and meat. Ability, by giving his blood to humans, he can turn them into demons. While giving blood, he also plants a curse within the demon's body. Through the curse, Mizun can read the thought of all demons and know their position. They can also transmit information to each other's minds. Demons who leak intelligence related to Mizun will have their cells destroyed by the curse and die. His regeneration ability is unparalleled. He can instantly recover while being attacked. Even if his body is cut into pieces, he can easily recover completely. Even if he self-divides, as long as a small piece of meat remains, he can quickly regenerate and recover, and regeneration does not consume any stamina. Mizun can freely control his cells. In combat, his body can transform into strange and varied limbs at will. For example, his arms can turn into thorny whips, with a maximum length of 10 meters. 9 long whips can extend from his back, with a maximum length of 4 meters, and each whip's speed reaches the speed of sound. If hit once, it can destroy the opponent's cells completely. The 8 tube whips that grow from his front are his killing move, with a maximum length of 7 meters and speed surpassing the speed of sound. Blood Demon Art, Black Blood Thorns, releases a large amount of blood and meat thorns that cause instant death upon contact. Mizun can release a wide-range shockwave similar to Conqueror's Hockey. While possessing extremely strong physical destruction power, it also carries a fierce mental impact, which can cause the entire human body's nervous system to become chaotic, leading to spasms, rendering people unable to move, unconscious, or even causing death. Note, Mizun possesses a wide-range perception ability similar to Observation Hockey, sensing human aura. Weakness, the only weakness is sunlight or any attack with the nature of sunlight. Mizun has long surpassed the demon's limit. The so-called demon's limit is when a demon has an extremely strong obsession before death, they might break through the limit and achieve head regeneration. Even if decapitated by a Nichiren blade, they will not die. Influence, Mizun has 12 of the strongest demons under him, called the 12 Kizuki, further divided into 6 upper ranks and 6 lower ranks. Ranked 1 to 6 based on the language numbers in their pupils, the upper ranks are far stronger than the lower ranks. Below is detailed files on the 12 Kizuki and Notheim. Upper rank 1, Kokushibo. Upper rank 2, Doma. Other, Mizun has an infinity castle. Through the blood demon art of a demon named Notheim, he can return inside the city at any time and place through sliding doors that appear out of thin air. The infinity castle main body's position is unknown. It is suggested to use a certain devil fruit ability to lock onto Mizun's position or enter inside the city with him at superhuman speed to pursue him. Evaluation. Given the characteristic of being almost impossible to kill at night, the overall combat power is roughly equivalent to a vice admiral. Mission: capture alive only. After reading, Marine Vice Admiral Kong Ming's mood was complex. He didn't even know what to say first. There were simply too many things he wanted to ask. Especially, where did the content on this come from? Wasn't the intelligence from the exploration personnel sent here immediately? This single piece of paper practically revealed everything about Mizan Kibatsuji and the 12 Kizuki. No, it even stripped off their underwear, leaving this progenitor of demons with no mystery left before the world government. That's right. This was a small cheat that M gave them. There was nothing else to do. Without this, the possibility of capturing Mizan Kibatsuji was too low. Not only that, but he also personally drew a small diagram. That was the second piece of paper in Kong Ming's hand. The moment he unfolded it, he felt an incredibly high level of drawing skill wash over him. He usually enjoyed drawing ink paintings and such, so he did have some artistic attainment. The streets, buildings, and clock tower on this paper, although drawn with only monochromatic pencils, had very clean lines, which was pleasing to the eye. Yes. Im had searched deep within his memory and redrawn the manga content he had seen back then. However, the infinity castle that surged from underground to the surface was not on it, making the street surface appear clearer and more distinct. Below was a line of handwritten annotation, stating, based on this diagram, search for similar cities. Actually, M didn't know if this would be useful. He was well aware that if it wasn't, it would likely just be a waste of time and energy for the people below. But so what? As long as there was a sliver of possibility, from his perspective as the big boss of the world government, it was worth it. It wasn't like he wasn't giving them salary and benefits. This. Don't ask, because this old man isn't clear either. You just need to know it came from above. Chairman Fernandez stopped Kong Ming from asking further questions. Kong Ming could only nod, but how could a smart person like him not think more? He speculated in his heart, perhaps it was some kind of prophecy-type devil fruit ability? Although he had never heard of such a devil fruit. But thinking of the world government's 800 years of foundation, he didn't find it strange anymore. Next, after the other three vice-chairmen finished reading the evaluation report on Doma and the files on Mizan Kibatsuji, the meeting could finally continue. So, Captain Steve Gus is bringing back this upper rank 2 of the 12 Kizuki, huh? Doesn't seem like much to me. Vice-Chairman Marlon Wilfred, who was in charge of finance, said with a relaxed smile. Indeed, our main issue is not having Nichiren blades, which makes it difficult to kill these demons. The speaker was Vice-Chairman Hobson Samuel, who was in charge of justice. I think we need to pay close attention to the fact that, according to this files on Mizan Kibatsuji, he can sense the position of demons. So, if Captain Gus brings Doma over, it will directly expose the base on the other side of the Stargate. Vice-Chairman Burwo Gabriel, formerly the Vice Minister of the State Council Administration Department, clearly thought of more details, and this received strong agreement from Marine Vice Admiral Kong Ming across the table. Exactly. Also, according to the report from Captain Gus and his team, Doma mistook them, the Kabinarai, for demons who could move in sunlight. So, Mizan must have already received this information. What will he do next? Marine Vice Admiral Kong Ming picked up the feather fan on the table, scanning the gazes of his other colleagues, and asked in a deep voice. He will capture Gus and Mekko at all costs, except for his own? Chairman Fernandez answered his question. At the same time, unable to resist his craving for a cigar, he took one out of his pocket and lit it. The process of exhaling smoke relaxed him, and his brain seemed to think faster. He continued to deduce based on the known intelligence and logic. Considering Mizan's personality, for such an important matter, he will likely summon the so-called 12 Kizuki, and even other demons. Marine Vice Admiral Kong Ming nodded, waving his feather fan, subtly blowing away the smoke in front of him, and said, "The problem now is how we should respond, and how to make good use of the value of this foreknowledge intelligence." What are your thoughts? Chairman Fernandez asked, holding the smoking cigar. Marine Vice Admiral Kong Ming, while his brain worked at high speed, stated his thoughts one by one. My thought is that the 12 Kizuki are insignificant, Mizan Kibatsuji is the top priority. If we forcefully kill the former, the latter will definitely be startled and hide, which would be very troublesome. Then we need to lock onto his position, which is the position of the Infinity Castle. The method I can think of now is... Chapter 313, Cypher Pal 9 Agent Captain vs. Former Water Hashira the Taisho era. Speaking smoothly, responding with firmness and moderation, great success comes from righteousness, this is the way of heaven. This was a relatively stable period in Japan. Its early phase was also known as an unprecedented golden age since the Meiji Restoration. A relatively stable, moderately prosperous life allowed many large cities to have extremely prosperous and bright night views. especially the metropolitan area centered around Tokyo, which could be described with words like brightly lit, bustling with people, and extraordinarily lively. Cars drove on the main roads, while men, women, old and young in twos and threes, some wearing harry, some in kimono, and some in suits, strolled among the various shops on both sides, their joyful laughter incessant. But where there is light, there is also darkness. In the alleys where the lights couldn't reach, an atmosphere of nervousness and fear permeated. Hurried footsteps echoed in the narrow, dark space. One was chasing, one was fleeing. Police, stop. Put your hands up. Just then, at the intersection ahead of the fleeing person, another person suddenly appeared, and while shouting loudly, held a revolver in both hands, pointing it at the figure trapped in the alley with nowhere to escape. At the same time, the pursuer also panted heavily, pointing his muzzle at the other's back, and shouted riotously. We are detectives from the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department. We now suspect you are involved in several murder cases. Please come back with us to assist with the investigation. As they spoke, the two maintained a steady, slow pace forward, one in front and one behind, while the person in the middle, wearing a black harry, remained motionless. This caused their minds to relax slightly, thinking the other party had given up resisting under the threat of the muzzle. Swish, but just as the detective in front approached within 7 or 8 meters, with a swish, that person instantly vanished from the spot, and before the detective could react, a terrifying blood hole appeared on his brow in the blink of an eye. Bang! The next moment, a bullet flew out of the gun barrel in a flash of gunfire flash. With a crisp clink, the detective who fired from behind was stunned, because he actually saw that person clamp the red-hot bullet with 2 fingers. Whoosh! The bullet was flicked from between the fingers, shooting back at an even faster speed, piercing the detective's forehead in the blink of an eye, and he collapsed with a bang in the dark alley. By this time, that figure had already disappeared without a trace. About 10 minutes later, police forces from the nearby Koban and police station arrived. They first sealed off the scene with caution tape, and after discovering a gold-framed red circular badge with the words S1 SMPD in gold on the left collar of the deceased, they immediately reported it to the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department. Because this was a symbol only worn by detectives from the Criminal Affairs Department, Investigation Division 1. Slap, a palm full of calluses from guns slapped heavily on the meeting table. Section Chief Wada roared furiously at the dozen or so unit chiefs in front of him. What were you doing? Not only has there been no progress on the previous dozen murder cases, but now one of our own is dead, and there are still no clues? This is Tokyo. And we are the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department. Facing the scolding from their direct superior, the unit chiefs could only lower their heads and take the lecture. After the section chief's spit had sprayed enough, a unit chief from the investigation unit hesitantly spoke. Section Chief, the autopsy results for Police Inspector Bukawa and Police Inspector Matsunauri are out. Police Inspector Matsunauri seems to have been shot through the forehead by Police Inspector Bukawa, and the bullet is still inside. As for Police Inspector Bukawa's brow wound, it's similar to the previous cases, both were pierced by a rod-shaped object. As soon as his voice fell, the unit chief of the 9th unit, whose subordinate had died, said with a terrible expression, from their facial expressions, Bukawa should have died instantly, while Matsunauri was full of shock. He must have seen something. And then? Section Chief Wada asked with a dark face. Up until now, we don't even know what they look like, what weapon they used, and even less why they killed. At this, all the unit chiefs fell into a deathly silence. Indeed. Up until now, there hasn't been a single eyewitness, and the murder motive is also unclear. Especially the latter. They investigated the relationship network of the deceased from the previous cases, but found that there was no connection between them whatsoever, as if the murderer just killed someone randomly. Increase patrols, increase searches, sweep through all those secluded alleys. But don't work in groups of 2 anymore, there must be at least 3 people. And while the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department was greatly angered, in the hidden places of the Army 1st Division Base, Navy Yokosuka Port, Army University, Navy University, and even the Imperial Palace of Japan, corpses, some fresh and some decomposing, were discovered. This attracted the attention and vigilance of various departments in the Japanese military and political circles, who thought they were spies from overseas. It must be said that these agents and spies from Cypher Pol brought the hockey style they used when carrying out missions in affiliated countries on the homeland. They would casually kill people who got in the way or people who witnessed them, and after killing, they would just leave the corpses in a secluded corner. In eliminating witnesses, they were indeed very clean, but in terms of hide corpse, it was a bit crude, or perhaps these people didn't care much. What if they were discovered? As the world government increased the number of investigators, these guys who were very strong, lawless, and only cared about the mission. Whether intentionally or unintentionally, actively or passively, they began causing ripples, big or small, within Japan. What's interesting is, this actually indirectly affected the Demon Slayer Corps operations in various places. These people carrying katanas began being subjected to intercepts, investigations, and even arrests by the police. Lucci and Mumai also met the trainers sent by the Demon Slayer Corps. Thank you very much for saving Tanjiro's life during the final selection. Sekenji Yorakadaki, wearing a red tang mask on his face and a white cloud and sea wave robe, said this as his first sentence upon walking up to Mumai. Because Tanjiro was the first disciple to return to him alive after so many years. It's nothing. I only acted because I saw him foolishly risking his life to save others. He's very similar to a boy I know, they're both big idiots. Mumai touched the transponder snail on her shoulder, raised her head, and said with a face full of arrogance. He he he. Sekenji Yorakadaki praised. Then I'd really like to meet the other idiot. I imagine he's a wonderful child. At the same time, the nose under the mask sniffed, and he thought inwardly, Tanjiro was right. This Mumai indeed has an aura of blood on her body, but it's very fresh, not the scent of demon. She should be carrying something containing fresh blood with her. Although this was very strange, for him, as long as it wasn't a demon, it was fine. He just considered the other things personal secrets, and this girl's disposition also seemed pretty good. Can you talk about the breathing style? I've been practicing swordsmanship for so many years, and this is the first time I've heard of this kind of thing. At this moment, Lucci, wearing samurai attire, touched the scabbard at his waist and said in a deep voice. Of course, I came here for this. Sekenji Yorakadaki nodded, but he had a question in his heart. This father and daughter look like they are from an ancient samurai family, but if that's the case, over so many years, how could they not have received an invitation from the Demon Slayer Corps? One more thing, since they don't know breathing style, how did they gain such strength? Mumai could defeat the hand demon that ate over 50 people, and this father actually gave him a strong sense of oppression. Could it be some kind of family-inherited special constitution? However, before the breathing style, you two need to first understand what the Demon Slayer Corps is, and what demons are. Lucci and Mumai exchanged a glance and chose to listen carefully to the trainer's following words. Although they had learned a little through Gushiwen before, it was too one-sided after all. Now that there's a professional here to explain, it couldn't be better. The command center of the Other World Strategy Committee on the world mainland was also silently waiting through the transponder snail. At this moment, someone had already prepared paper and pen, ready to record. First of all, the Demon Slayer Corps. The number of members is approximately several hundred people. It is a tissue that has not obtained official recognition from the Japanese government. However, the Demon Slayer Corps has existed as early as several hundred years ago and has been hunting demons until now. Then there are demons. Their staple food is humans. They kill and eat humans. They can appear at any time and from anywhere. Their physical ability is very strong. Even if injured, they heal immediately. Flesh that is cut off can also be reattached, and regrowing limbs is even easy. Some demons can also change their body shape, or obtain strange ability. As long as they are not exposed to sunlight or have their heads cut off by any iron blade, they cannot be killed. And we, the Demon Slayer Corps, must use our fragile flesh to fight against demons. Since we are human, the healing speed of our wounds will be very slow, and lost limbs will not regrow. But even so, we still must eliminate demons, only to protect humans. Hearing this, whether it was Lucci, Mumai, or the people in the command center, they only found two new pieces of information. The number of Demon Slayer Corps members and the nature of the Demon Slayer Corps. Strange, since the Demon Slayer Corps has existed for several hundred years, why are there only several hundred people now? That kind of breathing style and swordsmanship, since they can be taught, then why not expand the scale? Also, why don't they cooperate with the national governments throughout history? If their stance is to protect humans, then both sides should be aligned. They could even completely control the Japanese government many years ago. Vice Chairman Burwo Gabriel said in confusion. Maybe the breathing style and swordsmanship have relatively strict conditions? As for the second point, I don't understand either, or perhaps they tried before but failed for some reason. Lieutenant General Kongming replied softly. At this moment, Sekenji Yorakadaki's voice continued to transmit from the virtual screen. And I am a trainer. As the name suggests, I am someone responsible for training swordsmen. There are many trainers like me who will train swordsmen in their respective places using their respective methods. If you want to join the Demon Slayer Corps, you must first learn the breathing style and the swordsmanship of the corresponding style, and then pass the final selection at Mount Fujikasane. Of course, Mumai's situation is just the opposite. The full name of the breathing style is total concentration breathing. This is a technique that allows oxygen to be transported to every cell in the entire body, consciously performing deep breathing through different rhythmic frequencies. It can not only temporarily increase the body's natural healing ability, but also cause mental stabilization and activation. Most importantly, it can make a person's various physical abilities reach a level where they can resist demons. After hearing the detailed introduction about the breathing style, Lu Qi at the scene and Lieutenant General Kong Ming far away on world, their first reaction was to think of life return. Life return is pouring consciousness into every corner of the body, thereby freely controlling body muscles, blood, hair, and even internal organs, while greatly increasing food absorption efficiency, natural healing speed, and various aspects of physical ability, including, of course, the oxygen inhaled into the body. At the same time, the breathing style is also divided into 5 major basic styles: water, thunder, stone, flame, and wind, along with matching sword techniques. Later generations then developed new styles with various characteristics based on these 5 major styles, such as flower, insect, snake, love, sound, and mist. And what I will teach you next is water breathing and all 10 types of water form sword techniques. At this moment, Lu Qi, who was playing Mu Mai's father, suddenly raised an eyebrow and took a step forward. He saw him gripping the sword hilt at his waist with his right hand and said, "Sounds very interesting. I wonder if I could experience your means?" Although Lu Qi was used to using 6 powers and hockey for hand-to-hand combat, he still had the basics of swordsmanship. After all, whether it was the Marines or their cipher Paul, the first practical combat content they came into contact with was swordsmanship. Although this trainer spoke about the breathing style in a dazzling manner, both the world government behind the scenes and he himself wanted to experience it personally and also evaluate its value. Alright, it just so happens that I am also full of curiosity in my heart. Let's have a simple sparring match. Sakanji Yorakadaki agreed after considering for a moment. He wanted to see what was so special about this samurai father of Mu Mai. A person who doesn't know breathing style could actually give him, a former water Hashira, a sense of oppression? Soon. The two came to the yard. Mu Mai was responsible for closing the gate, and then stood on the stairway, looking with expectant eyes at the following combat. Lu Qi and Sakanji Yorakadaki stood facing each other at a distance of 5 or 6 meters apart. Both had their right hands lightly placed on the sword hilt. The atmosphere gradually became solemn. Clang, seeing that the former had no intention of attacking first, Sakanji Yorakadaki immediately drew his sword and rushed forward. In the melodious sound of drawing sword, poetic and picturesque sea waves and splashing sounds suddenly appeared out of thin air, accompanied by the rapidly swung niche iron blade. Total concentration, water breathing. It was obvious that he was intentionally holding back. He didn't even use a sword technique. Although the aura Lu Qi gave off was very strange, he was after all, a person who didn't know breathing style. These wave, this sound. Really interesting. Lu Qi's mouth curved up, and he smiled slightly. Speaking of which, it's been a long time since he used a blade. In the blink of an eye, the two became entangled in the court. Fighting fast against fast, accompanied by trailing after images, the clanging sound of ding ding dang dang was incessant. Their attack speed and movement speed were both very fast, but the court was only that big, so they both intentionally controlled their own movement range. This made the collision frequency of the clash of swords extremely astonishing. In Mu Mai's eyes, Lu Qi was like he was resisting the continuously surging sea waves. The scene looked very beautiful. There was nothing she could do. Although she knew how to use a blade, she hadn't received professional training after all and couldn't understand the mystery within at all. But Sakanji Yorakadaki's mood was different. He was now shocked beyond belief. This person can actually keep up with my speed? And his strength, reaction. But his breathing rhythm indeed doesn't look like he knows breathing style. Since that's the case, then this old man will also use his true skill. Sakanji Yorakadaki suddenly began moving at high-speed movement. His speed was several times faster than before. He even left behind realistic after-image clones in his wake. His posture looked particularly beautiful, like he was dancing. The key was that the water flow on his niche iron blade seemed to become even more turbulent. Water breathing, third form, flowing dance. But after this technique was performed, the clash of weapons still gently echoing in his ears caused the expression under his mask to change drastically, because Lu Qi actually intercepted all of his sword edges. The opponent clearly just stood still, and the one he held in his hand was also an ordinary katana. But that exquisite swordsmanship displayed the word defense to the fullest. You should know, Lu Qi's swordsmanship, although it was just the basic swordsmanship within Cipher Paul, and he himself wasn't very good at it. But after all, it has been a basic swordsmanship continuously improved by countless sword masters and even great swordsmen over hundreds of years. Relying on it might not make one a great swordsman, but one can still reach sword master through effort. The foundation gap between the two worlds was revealed so silently at this moment. Water breathing, second form, water wheel. Water breathing, first form, water surface slash. Water breathing, seventh form, drop ripple thrust. Lucci's expression was indifferent. He dealt with the waves of water. Sakanji Yorakadaki swung out with ease, but an idea formed in his heart. So that's how it is. Those water flows and sounds are just illusory deception. Their breathing style can activate the spirit, and then through the matching sword techniques, allow mental power to attach to the blade and sword wind to manifest corresponding water wave special effects, serving to confuse vision to a certain extent. It's a bit like the projection ability of a visual den mushi. Also, he is clearly intentionally predicting my actions. This should be the perception effect brought by mental activation, similar to the basic function of observation hockey. Chapter 314, The Third Stargate. 6,000 character chapter, Water Breathing, 10th Form, Constant Flux. Sakanji Yorakadaki could no longer suppress the emotions in his heart. From beneath his tang mask, he erupted with a roar filled with shock and unwillingness. In an instant, a water dragon, formed by converging waves with clearly visible dragon scales, surged from his blade. Accompanied by his continuous sword swings, it let out bursts of dragon roars and splashing sounds, vividly circling his body. He truly hadn't expected that he would be helpless against an ordinary samurai who couldn't use a breathing style. At this moment, the confidence the breathing style had given this former water Hashira gradually collapsed. So, even without a breathing style, humans could possess strength capable of fighting demons? But just then, Lucci, while parrying with him, spoke calmly. His words made Sakanji Yorakadaki unable to believe his ears. I think I've roughly figured out your breathing rhythm. See if this is it. As soon as he finished speaking, Lucci's figure also moved. The katana in his hand cut through the air with a curve extremely familiar to Sakanji Yorakadaki. But this wasn't the most astonishing part. What was most astonishing was that waves of blue water flow also appeared on the blade. Water breathing, 10th form, constant flux, is that what it's called? Clang. Bang. Clang clang. Bang bang, amidst the rushing water flow and waves, Mumai watched with wide eyes as one large and one small water dragon tangled, circled, bit, and collided with each other in the court. Those loud dragon roars gave her the most extreme audio-visual effect. Boom, suddenly. With a resounding crash, Sakanji Yorakadaki's niche iron blade was knocked away, spinning over a dozen times in the air before embedding itself in the ground in front of Mumai. It's really interesting, a breathing technique that can enhance physical ability and mobilize and strengthen mental power. Although for someone like me who has mastered life return, its uses are limited beyond creating illusions, it's a quite perfect basic cultivation method, providing a very smooth progression towards mastering life return, observation hockey, and even 6 powers. Lucci seemed to be saying this to himself, or to Sakanji Yorakadaki, who was kneeling semi-crouched and panting in front of him. But in reality, he was speaking to the other World Strategy Committee through the visual den mushi on Mumai's shoulder. Life return? Observation hockey? Sakanji Yorakadaki was confused after hearing this, thinking to himself. Is this the reason he is so strong? At this moment, he made a decision in his heart. He smoothly transitioned from a kneeling position to a standard doji, and sincerely and deeply said to Lucci. Sir Mitsui, please, you must join the Demon Slayer Corps. Your strength, your talent, will become the pillar supporting the cause of demon elimination. The aptitude and strength Lucci displayed reminded him of Yoriichi Tsujikuni, the legendary founder of breathing styles. If he could achieve such combat power just by imitating water breathing, how much stronger would he become if he learned the most suitable breathing style and swordsmanship? He might even be able to create a new style one day in the future. You said before that besides water breathing, there are many breathing styles with different styles, right? Just so happens, I'm very interested in them now. Lucci returned his katana to its scabbard, looking down at the back of Sakanji Yorakadaki's head with a blank expression. Take me to see the world's strongest among you, and that head. If they're decent people, I can join the Demon Slayer Corps. No problem, I will contact them for you immediately. Sakanji Yorakadaki suddenly raised his head, his expression beneath the tang mask filled with joy. He firmly believed that with the strength of the current Hashira of the Demon Slayer Corps and the personal charisma of the head, they would definitely be able to keep this incredibly talented individual. Kasugai Crow. He quickly stood up, not bothering with the dust on his legs, and loudly called over a black crow. Then he spoke quickly to it. Immediately report everything that just happened to the head. The crow nodded in a very human-like manner, then let out a caw cry and flapped its wings, soaring high. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared from the trio's sight. It can understand your words? And transmit them to others? At this moment, Mumai, looking curious and carrying her short sword-shaped niche iron blade on her back, walked over and asked. Sekenji Yorakadaki nodded, introducing with a happy mood. Yes, Kasugai crows have extremely high intelligence. They can repeat commands in human speech or converse with people using their self-awareness. They are a type of ninja beast. Ninja beast. Lucci, Mumai, and the people in the command center instantly grasped this new piece of information. Lieutenant General Kongming fanned his feather fan and smiled slightly. It seems this Demon Slayer Corps has quite a few new things. Good, the more useful things there are, the more we will gain in the future. In Chairman Fernandez's view, not just the Demon Slayer Corps, but the entire world, including the demons, would sooner or later belong to the world government. And the greater the world government's gains in this world, the higher his political achievements would be. In this way, it won't be long before Captain Lucci and the others can infiltrate the Demon Slayer Corps. As long as they find the location of their headquarters, they can gather manpower and take them down. Oh right, how is Captain Guts doing? Lieutenant General Kongming smiled. The plan has been sent over, but Captain Guts hopes to execute this mission alone and have Mekko return first. No. Chairman Fernandez immediately refused, saying coldly. One person has too high a chance of unexpected events. With two people, even if one has a problem, the other can at least buy us more time. Moreover, two people can look out for each other. Although Mekko's strength is not as great as Captain Guts, as a new form Kabanrai, she can at least help Captain Guts hold off the 12 Kizuki for a while. That's enough. This head of the Otherworld Strategy Committee completely disregarded Mekko's life or death, and even Captain Guts' life or death was only valued for how much time it could buy. Understood. Lieutenant General Kongming said no more. Cypher Paul's work was inherently like this, they had to be prepared to sacrifice themselves for the world government at any moment. Soon, their ruthless decision was communicated via transponder Sneal to Captain Guts and Mekko, who were constantly changing locations in the mountain forest with Doma. I understand. After hanging up the call, Captain Guts sighed in his heart and said with a light laugh to Mekko beside him. Looks like you'll have to meet Mizan Kibutsuji and the 12 Kizuki with me. It's alright, the current work isn't much different from before. It's just changed from the Hunter Guard against the Shogunate to Cypher Paul against the Otherworld, just a bit more dangerous. Mekko looked calmly at the morning sun about to appear on the horizon and said. At least there's still a daytime, isn't there? And it's not necessarily a certain death. She looked down at her prominent chest. Beneath her clothing was a burning heart emitting a faint blue light. Also, I don't think Kabanrai from our ancestral world are weaker than the demons of this world. Who is stronger, who is weaker, who wins, who loses? We'll only know after fighting. Captain Guts was taken aback, then burst into laughter, patting the black pot beside him that sealed Doma. Right, these upper rank aren't that big of a deal. Although we can't kill them, we can tie them up with black silk sticky thread and keep them from moving. But despite saying that, the Mizan Kibutsuji, who had lived for 1,000 years, still brought immense pressure to his heart. Moreover, since they were the 12 Kizuki, it meant the opponent had 11 other superpower demons like Doma, who possessed nearly immortal self-healing ability and devil fruit ability like superpowers. Now Captain Guts only hoped that their supporting combat power would arrive as soon as possible. On the Sea Star mainland, at the place of the world's highest authority, within the Room of Authority in Holy Land Mary Ejos. These are the design blueprints for Pluton. Saint Shepherd Jupiter, who was in charge of Cypher Paul, chuckled and placed a thick stack of blueprints on the coffee table in the center. These were design blueprints re-recorded and redrawn by professional technicians based on the captured content. I didn't expect Brooks' Yami fruit ability to be so effective at stealing things. The other four did not touch the design blueprints. Saint Topman Warcurry examined him and said. The warship used against us back then has now fallen into our hands. The unpredictability of worldly affairs is truly unimaginable. But although the design blueprints are in hand, Pluton is still out there, whereabouts unknown. And the original design blueprint in Tom's hands needs to be dealt with, right? Saint Jaga Ursha Saturn took up the conversation, gripping the cane in his hand. Let him keep it until he finishes developing the sea train. This is something that can connect all islands in a short amount of time. Its value, this old man personally believes, is second only to the Stargate. Even Pluton isn't as valuable as it. Saint Marcus Mars, who was in charge of science and history-related fields, stood by the sofa, hands in his pockets, and said in a deep voice. When the sea train network is completely formed, we might be able to achieve the ultimate goal of our ancestors from 800 years ago. Indeed, but now that we have the Pluton design blueprints, should we build it? Then Saint Ethenbra and Venusjiro picked up the design blueprints from the coffee table, flipping through the content as he asked. Although it's impossible for it to pass through a stargate of the current size, We can try Stussie's mini fruit ability. As the world government's military supreme leader, he was interested in anything that could enhance military power. The temptation of a legendary super weapon like Pluton, capable of blasting an island into nothingness with a single shot, goes without saying. This seems to require a large amount of atom wood. Is our inventory sufficient? Oh? Let this old man see. Saint Topman Warcurry raised an eyebrow and took the Pluton design blueprints from Saint Ethenborough Venusdro. He immediately saw the content the former mentioned, but the various numbers on it were astonishing. This Pluton is actually this big? As for whether the treasury's inventory is enough, I'm really not sure. Call Harkins over and ask. Hearing this, Chief of Staff Alexander Watson, who was waiting nearby, quickly went to notify Dean Harkins of the Grand Steward Institute, as the Holy Land Treasury was managed by the Grand Steward Institute. Soon after, Dean Harkins, whose hair was somewhat gray but meticulously styled, hurried over. Respected 5 elders, sirs. We called you here to ask how much atom wood we still have? Saint Topman Warcurry looked at him with a blank expression. Yes, sir. Dean Harkins quickly stated the amount of atom wood reserves stored in his memory, while also giving a grateful glance to Chief of Staff Alexander Watson. If that's all there is, then it seems it's not enough. Saint Ethenborough Venusdro frowned tightly. This made the atmosphere within the room of authority become oppressive, and also made Dean Harkins, who was standing there reporting, not dare to breathe loudly. Is there any atom wood outside, and where can we obtain large quantities? Saint Topman Warcurry asked. There should still be some circulating on the black market, or we could dismantle ships made of atom wood, but this method requires a lot of time and is quite complicated. However, there is a place that still retains many atom trees. As soon as Dean Harkins finished speaking, Saint Marcus Mars continued. You're referring to Elboff, right? Yes, sir. Hearing the 4 words Elboff, everyone fell silent. After a moment, Saint Topman Warcurry waved his hand. You may return. Yes, sir. Dean Harkins quickly bowed in respect and then hurried out of the room of authority. So, if we want to build another Pluton, we first have to deal with this giant kingdom? That's good, this old man has long wanted to flatten them during my term. A sharp glint flashed in Saint Ethenborough Venusdro's eyes. Wano country has been dealt with, what can Elboff do? We should make a decision. Either submit and affiliate, or be directly destroyed. Indeed, they have become the only non-affiliated nation in our rear. Saint Shepherd Jupiter agreed. Then let's report this matter and let Lord Amu make the final decision. Saint Topman Warcurry also felt that on the path of conquering the multiverse, the giant race should not be left out. They should either fight for the world government, or they should all die. At worst, they could leave behind some seeds of the giant race and cultivate a completely new giant tribe from childhood. Now let's talk about the second otherworld. You must have all read the various intelligence reports sent by the Otherworld Strategy Committee. What are your thoughts? St. Marcus Mars found a sofa and sat down. This is a world with a large population, large military strength, many countries, and most of their technology is behind ours, especially in communication. However, their warships, submarines, planes, and airships are things we either don't have or are inferior to. St. Ethenborough Venusdro continued. Overall, it's a bit more troublesome than the Kabinari world, but the level of threat is about the same. We can try to avoid naval warfare and directly dispatch combat power to attack the hinterlands of various countries. This old man thinks we can find a way to control the military and political higher-ups of that Japan, especially that damn emperor. Using the entire Japan's manpower, financial resources, and military power as puppets, we can gradually make contact with other countries. St. Jaga Ursha Saturn's suggestion made St. Topman Warcurry, St. Marcus Mars, and others fall into contemplation. However, this also aroused St. Ethenborough Venusdro's dissatisfaction. He said coldly and forcefully, Humphrey, this old man thinks that since we've already figured out the true strength of this Mizankibutsuji with the help of Lord Amu, which is only at the level of a mere vice-admiral, there's nothing to be concerned about. Just dispatch a large army and high-level combat power to suppress them. Above the Noah's Ark, slowly flying at high altitude in the first half of the Grand Line, Im was wearing a loose silver robe with gold trim, hands clasped behind his back, gazing at the vast white sea of clouds above. At this moment, a sentence suddenly came to his mind. No one stood in the sky from the beginning, neither you nor I. Not even God. But, the vacant period of the heavenly throne is about to end. From now on, I shall stand at the summit. This was a classic line from Mazen Sosk in Bleach. But people are different. I, Im, have always stood in the sky from the very beginning. The empty throne has never had a vacant period. The reason he thought of this was because the Noah's Ark had arrived in the Jaya Island Sea area. This meant that the sea of clouds before him was actually the White Sea, and 3,000 meters above that was the White Sea. And there was a large sky island called Skypia and a fellow who truly called himself God. Even though knew that the Sky Island people's so-called God was just a title similar to king, and they didn't truly believe themselves to be omniscient, omnipotent, and supreme God. But as the hidden big boss of the world government and the actual king of the world, he was still quite displeased. The key was that the Sky Island was right above him. When I reach Sky Island, there will be no more God or Skypia. Withdrew his meaningful gaze and, accompanied by Stussy behind him and the Kuja guards on alert nearby, arrived at an open space surrounded by a circle of flower beds, roughly the size of a soccer field. Lord Saint Nerona. At this moment, a beautiful woman with golden hair and blue eyes, holding a water bottle and a towel, hurried over, greeting him respectfully with a nervous expression. Merely glanced at the exceptionally beautiful Stella, then focused his gaze on Tesoro, who was diligently practicing martial arts in the court with a cipher Polylite. This woman was indeed beautiful. But he wouldn't be so consumed by lust as to steal the wife of his subordinate. He had emotions and desires, but he wouldn't be controlled by them. Within the open space, many heavy-duty exercise equipment were placed, such as barbells weighing 1 ton per plate, iron bars weighing 2 tons, iron grinding stones weighing 3 tons, and so on. In addition, there were various golden creations of strange shapes. However, since Tesoro was currently practicing martial arts, these things remained quietly in place. Not bad, your body looks much stronger than before. Was very satisfied with his serious attitude. One must know that this kid ate sea king's meat every day, along with high nutrition milk and fish specifically transported from the East Blue. In terms of food specifications, it was only 1 level below his own. All of this was to allow Tesoro to reach the strength the 7 warlords of the sea should have as quickly as possible. Once he mastered 6 powers and developed his gold fruit ability sufficiently, he could be sent out to find his own opportunity to awaken and become the true Golden Emperor. Tesoro's main task in the future was to develop and control the entertainment industry of the world and even other worlds, providing a continuous stream of underground intelligence for himself and the world government. Making money was just a side benefit. Of course. If needed, he also had to act as a high-level combat power to eliminate certain existences that wanted to erase. The so-called 7 warlords of the sea were essentially his direct envoys, monitoring important situations happening in their respective domains outside and helping him deal with matters that were inconvenient for the world government to handle. Their status was similar to that of the 5 elders. Returning to his residential palace, just as he was about to pick up Inma from the sword stand and head to hell to continue hunting yokai and enhancing his soul, saw several new reports on the desk. Alright, I'll finish the work first. The first report stated that the relevant departments of the world government had begun contacting Fishman Island and Waters 7 to discuss the renovation of large gas storage facilities to create a bubble that could cover the entire island of Water 7, in order to resist the annual Aqua Laguna. However, it would likely take 1 to 2 years to fully implement. Wasn't surprised by this. The second was a full-body examination report on Marshal D. Teach from the Medical Academy of the Drum Kingdom. Although it was still unclear why he didn't need to sleep, it had been confirmed that he had a chimera physique. Generally speaking, a person only has 1 set of lineage factors in their body. Chimera refers to someone with at least 2 sets of lineage factors in their body. And Marshal D. Teach had 3. TSK. Impressive. He really is an anomaly. So, he can actually eat 3 devil fruits? Although had anticipated this, he still found it quite miraculous. It's just that this guy's ambition was too restless. Even after learning about stargates and other worlds, he probably wouldn't settle down. He would only think about finding a place to become king and dominate once he became stronger. This was a guy who was extremely good at enduring but unwilling to be ordinary. But the stargates are in my hands, what can he do? Felt that his biggest confidence, besides his own strength far exceeding the so-called highest combat power of the world, was his control over the star chart and stargates. This also made him dare to use anyone willing to obey. Even if someone's strength and ambition exceeded his control in the future, he could just close the stargate. At most, he would abandon 1 world. In this way, the opponent would only have the resources of 1 world, while and the world government would have the resources of more worlds behind them, and they would eventually surpass the former. Then they could open the stargate again and deal with him. Just then, suddenly remembered that another year had passed. So he could open another stargate. And according to the star chart's description, after opening the 3rd stargate, he could choose one of the 3 opened stargates and upgrade it to a medium stargate. Quickly opened a star chart. Indeed, there was an additional stargate permission. The first world was Kabanari world, the second world was Demon Slayer world. What will his 3rd world be? I hope it's a world that is helpful to myself. Of course, he was quite interested in Ms. Kibutsuji's self-healing ability, which didn't consume stamina and allowed for infinite body regeneration, but he definitely wouldn't become a demon. When the time comes, I'll capture him and send him to the Biochemical Research Institute. Chapter 315, Blackbeard? Greybeard. Inside the clean and tidy room, it was warm thanks to the underfloor heating. Marshall D. Teach sat on the bed, staring blankly out the window at the swirling heavy snow, the howling cold wind, and the tiny black shadows climbing barehanded on the surface of another drum mountain peak in the distance. He had been in the Drum Kingdom for 2 days. Yesterday, he had a full-body examination at the so-called World Hospital, and then stayed in this guest room at the medical academy. He wasn't mistreated during the process, but being at the mercy of others made him feel uncomfortable. And things shouldn't have developed like this. But he had no choice. That Aokiji not only escorted him all the way but also inexplicably stayed here, saying he liked the weather. His only gain was learning that his physique could eat 3 devil fruits. Great. No, I have to find a way to leave here. I don't believe that bastard can stay here forever. Since he's an admiral candidate, he must have a lot of things to be busy with, right? Marshall D. Teach could only comfort himself like this in his heart. Knock knock knock, is Mr. Teach in? Although he was only 16 this year, the voice outside the door was clearly middle-aged, but the tone sounded very polite and gentle. Yes. Teach sighed and stood up. Looking at the 4 men in black who pushed the door open and entered, he saw the man in black who led the way take off his sunglasses, revealing a smile that made people feel good. I am Coulson, Senior Director of the Administrative Department. It's a pleasure to meet you. An official of the world government? Teach frowned slightly, then walked to a sofa and sat down. While picking up an apple pie from the coffee table, he said, "Sit down and talk. If you've brought good news, I can share one with you." Coulson also sat down and glanced at the 3 apple pies remaining on the table. It is indeed good news, but we have regulations and cannot casually eat outside food. Cough, cough, let's get down to business. You should know about your physique, right? I know. What are you planning to do with me? Teach asked calmly while eating the apple pie. It's like this. The world government wants to vigorously cultivate you and maximize the value of this special constitution, so I was ordered to bring these 3 devil fruits. Coulson maintained a smile that was almost fake but didn't make people feel repulsed. At the same time, the 3 men in black behind him placed the wooden box in their hands onto the coffee table one by one, then returned to their original positions, looking straight ahead with expressionless faces. Marshall D. Teach stared blankly at the 3 boxes in front of him, speechless for a moment. What a grand gesture. As expected of the world government, just taking out 3 devil fruits like this. Ah, no. The key was that he didn't want to eat these inexplicable devil fruits. As a genius who had memorized the entire devil fruit encyclopedia, he wanted to choose his devil fruit ability according to his own ideas. One of them was the Logia system's dark fruit. As for the other 2, he would decide later. But what should he do now? What excuse could he use to refuse? Can I ask what these devil fruits are? Teach struggled for a long time, thinking he should ask first. Of course. Coulson had no objection and personally opened the first box on the left, revealing a devil fruit with a crystal-clear surface, sparkling like a diamond. This is the Parimshya system's glass fruit. According to the devil fruit encyclopedia, its ability belongs to super creation, allowing the user to create and control various glass constructs. Upon awakening, it can assimilate surrounding objects into glass. Teach's head was filled with 3 golden big question marks after listening. Coulson, sitting opposite him, seemed unaware of his complicated mood and lifted the lid of the second box, revealing a devil fruit that was entirely silver-black with a surface covered in striped raised patterns. This is the Parimshya system's rebar fruit. Its ability belongs to superpowers, allowing the user to manipulate long, bar-shaped metal from a distance, or turn touched metal into a long, bar shape and then control it. Next was the 3rd devil fruit, which was entirely gray-white, with one half of the surface rough and the other half smooth. And this last one is also a Parimshya system, the cement fruit. It belongs to the special Parimshya type and allows the body to turn into powdery, liquid, and solid cement. It can also create and control various types of cement. It is definitely a valuable devil fruit with infinite potential. Coulson looked at Teach with full confidence and smiled. But the latter looked at him with a "Are you kidding me?" gaze. Yes, the abilities of these 3 devil fruits sounded good, but what was the point of combining them? Cement, rebar, glass. You want me to build houses? Teach was so angry he laughed, his fists clenched tightly under the coffee table. Yes, you will be arranged to our administrative department's construction department next, to participate in various important projects of the world government, both now and in the future. Coulson looked at Marshall D. Teach very seriously. With the abilities of these 3 devil fruits, plus being an official of the world government, it is enough to guarantee you a stable and worry-free life, living in abundance. And you can also personally participate in the facility construction of the soon-to-be-established Whitebeard Kingdom. Not only can you help Mr. Edward Newgate, but he will surely be proud of you. Marshall D. Teach was completely stunned, his mouth wide open, unable to utter a single word. He thought to himself, this person is very persuasive, he's blocked all my escape routes. Now, it seems I can't refuse, right? Cough, cough, can I consider it for a few days? Also, I've also read the Devil Fruit Encyclopedia and have some devil fruits I'm interested in. Could you go back and ask if you can help me find them? This yet-to-be-born Blackbeard quickly said, thinking on his feet. He felt this was actually an opportunity. Perhaps he could use the power of the world government to find the dark fruit. Wasn't this more hopeful than following the Whitebeard pirates? Once he had the dark fruit, who in this world could stop him? However, Coulson showed a troubled expression, completely extinguishing this little thought of his. I'm very sorry, but that's not possible. As far as I know, the world government is currently in urgent need of infrastructure-related talent, and this is also a decision from above. Before I came, our ministers specifically instructed me to make sure you eat them and then take you to the construction department to report. There was nothing he could do. Teach was targeted by a certain mastermind, and there was no room for him to refuse. Either you eat these 3 devil fruits and obediently contribute to the world government's projects, shining brightly, and your life will naturally be worry-free. Or you can choose to refuse, or even resist, and then be beaten up and thrown into Impel Down Level 5.5, to be used as biochemical experiment materials in a dark and sunless environment. It's worth mentioning that the 3 men in black behind Coulson were all ability user elites from Cypher Pol 9 agent, and outside in the strong wind and heavy snow stood an Aokiji who looked like he was just enjoying the scenery. Marshall D. Teach was naturally aware of this. But he was very strange. Why was he being treated with such importance? A special constitution alone shouldn't warrant this, right? Was it because he was part of the Whitebeard pirates? How inexplicable. Ah. I understand. Under the gaze of Coulson and the 3 men in black, Teach could only sigh deeply and reach out towards the cement fruit with a heart full of despair. Let it be. After all, they were 3 Paramsha system fruits, and this one was a special Paramsha type comparable to the Logia system. If he developed them well, he would probably be very strong. Right? 10 minutes later. On Noah's Ark, Im received the news that Marshall D. Teach had eaten the cement fruit, the rebar fruit, and the glass fruit, which made him laugh uncontrollably. Ha 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 ha, from now on, there will be no Blackbeard, only a Greybeard. Chapter 316, Kabinarai World and Man-Eating Demons. In the Demon Slayer world, as the bright moon rose, the night turned into a vast curtain covering the sky and earth. The mountain forest in the wilderness once again became eerie, pitch black, filling people with fear. The branches and leaves that were worth admiring during the day now became menacing, swaying in the wind like yokai, surrounding this open space roughly the size of a basketball court. Captain Guts and Mekko, both from Cypher Pol, News Squad, stood back to back, with the black jar containing Doma behind them. They calmly scanned the flickering after images in the darkness. Although their naked eyes couldn't see anything clearly, the presence of observation haki made the positions and auras of those demon things completely visible. Of course, the 2 transponder snails on their shoulders were also constantly turning their large eyes. Their numbers were large. A full 100. The one with the strongest aura was directly opposite Captain Guts. Soon, the opponent slowly walked out, their footsteps carrying a strong sense of oppression. They bathed in the bright moonlight alongside the 2. Upper rank 1, Kokushibo. He had a long black mane tied in a high ponytail, and his face bore 3 pairs of red-eyed demon eyes with red sclera. He wore a purple snake-patterned kimono paired with black hakama, and the katana at his waist was named Kokushibo's katana. The eldest son of the Tsujikuni family during Japan's Sengoku period, the older brother of Yoriichi Tsujikuni, and currently the world's strongest upper-rank hunter Kibutsuji. Tap, 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 immediately after, 9 figures appeared one after another from all directions. 4 of them stood in front with Kokushibo, while the other 5 were behind the various upper ranks. Upper rank 3, Akaza. Pink short hair, his entire body covered in dark blue tattoos. Upper rank 4, Handu. Swollen forehead, 2 horns on his head, an old man with a face like a hanya. Upper rank 5, Jocko. Hiding within and connected to a pot, his mouth was where his eyes should be, his eyes were on his forehead and where his mouth should be, and several small arms covered in purple snake scale patterns grew from his head and other places. Upper rank 6, Daki. A young beauty like an Oiran, with a hairpin in her hair, and pink flower tattoos on her left cheek and right forehead. The latter 5. Lower rank 1, Inmu. Lower rank 2, Roguro. Lower rank 3, Wakaba. Lower rank 4, Mikago. Lower rank 6, Kamanyo. It could be said that, except for upper rank 2, Doma, and lower rank 5, Rua, all of the 12 Kizuki were here. This was the first time in nearly 1,000 years. Are they the demons who aren't afraid of sunlight? Handu, who was completely prostrate on the ground, exuding a cowardly and timid aura, looked timidly at Captain Guts and Mekko, his voice low. How nice. But I don't smell any demon energy on them. They look more like humans. Perhaps the reason they aren't afraid of sunlight is related to this. As he spoke, Akaza squinted his eyes, observing Captain Guts. He thought to himself. Such powerful battle aura. Stronger than all the Hashira I've encountered before, or rather, even stronger than that monster. His gaze then flickered towards Kokushibo not far away. From the large mouth where his left eye should be, Gyako extended a scarlet informant and chuckled. What a beautiful woman. I need to think about what kind of pot would be most artistic to place a golden-haired head on. At this moment, Captain Guts, who had been playfully teased by these upper ranks with their mocking tones, crossed his arms over his chest and interrupted them calmly. Why are you missing one? As soon as he finished speaking, in the court fell silent. The many low-grade demons who were only fit to stay in the forest looked at him in surprise at how calm he was. Didn't this guy know death was imminent? As for lower rank 5, Rua, because demons can pass intelligence to each other, they already knew he had been eliminated by the Demon Slayer Corps. Of course, because the Corps is Mizunkibutsuji, if something happened to him, this function of passing intelligence would temporarily disappear. For example, back then, when Mizunkibutsuji was severely injured and escaped near death after being slashed by Yoriichi Tsujikuni, he couldn't pass intelligence anymore. This also allowed Damayo to seize the opportunity to use a prescription to renovate her body, freeing herself from his bloodline control. Trash who disobey Lord Mizun's orders, gather with a bunch of low-grade demons, and play family games. How are they qualified to stand here? Kokushibo answered Captain Guts expressionlessly. It hated those who had no concept of hierarchy the most, believing it would make order become chaos. Is that so? Then what are you planning to do now? Captain Guts shrugged indifferently. Come with us to see Lord Mizun, or, have your limbs broken by me, and then go see Lord Mizun. Kokushibo used I here, not we. Because it felt Mizun was making a bit of a fuss. He had only defeated a single Doma, there was no need to summon the entire 12 Kizuki. It alone was enough. Then show me what skill you have. Suddenly, Mekko roared angrily. Immediately after, black substance began to appear on her skin. It covered her upper body, her neck, arms, and face. The pupils of her eyes, in particular, emitted a faint blue light. The biggest change was that her right arm had already condensed into a long, large black scimitar. At the same time, a ball of the greenish-purple energy bullet shot out from the palm of her left hand, aimed forward. The fierce strong wind completely ripped open the ground in front of her. First form, Dark Moon, Evening Palace. An AI slash, so fast that the blade couldn't be seen, was unleashed by Kokushibo in an instant. The arc-shaped slashing trajectory, carrying streaks of bright yellow crescent moons, split the energy that had already turned into a beam mid-flight into two, sending them flying past on either side. Finally, in the dark forest behind it, they turned into dazzling radiance and exploded, sweeping over a large area of low-grade demons serving as the background, blowing their bizarre bodies to pieces with severed limbs flying everywhere. Boom boom boom, ah, it hurts so much. What is this thing? It can even explode. Among them, a red-eyed demon with bluish skin color, demonic horns on its head, and a mouthful of fangs, quickly recovered its tattered body. It stared at Mekko, who had also turned into a monster, with killing intent and cursed. Clearly, mental energy bullets were also difficult to cause damage to these man-eating demons. As expected, you are not demons, but you are not humans either. Then, what exactly are you? Kokushibo asked coldly, loosely holding Kokushibo's katana, which had already been returned to its scabbard. At this moment, Captain Guts was raising his hand to stop Mekko from further attacking. Hearing its words, he smiled and said, "We are Kobanrai." The words Kobanrai caused a discussion among the many man-eating demons around. Many of them had lived for hundreds of years, but none of them had ever heard of it. Alright, since you can cut through a mental energy bullet with a single blade, it shows you indeed have the strength to capture us. Since that's the case, we'll go with you to see that Mizun. We also happen to want to talk to him. Hearing Captain Guts' words, both Kokushibo and Mizunkibutsuji, who was watching all of this inside the city through its eyes, frowned. Kokushibo asked in a deep voice. Do you mean that the so-called Kabanrai are also a large group like us, and you also have stronger individuals behind you? Hey. Captain Guts smiled. At the same time, large amounts of black substance also began to emerge from his body, quickly forming a hardening black face mask and ferocious armor on him. His eyes, emitting blue light, looked at Kokushibo. We have a history of over 300 years. There are tens of thousands of low-grade Kabanrai, hundreds of mid-grade Kabanrai, and over a dozen high-grade Kabanrai like us in new form. Above that, there is the strongest deep new. How about it? Shall we have a communication? Man-eating demons of Japan. Chapter 317, Crocodile is a natural disaster. Inside the command center of the Otherworld Strategy Committee, the screen wall, composed of projections from dozens of visual dendenmushi, displayed the first-person perspective footage of Captain Guts and Mecha in the Demon Slayer world. They were seen walking into a Japanese-style wooden sliding door that appeared out of thin air, surrounded by the 11 demon moons and numerous low-level man-eating demons. The prey has taken the bait, the hunter begins tracking. Seeing this, Lieutenant General Kong Ming, standing behind the control panel with more than a dozen technicians, a sharp glint flashing in his eyes, quickly waved the white feather fan in his hand and issued the order in an extremely composed tone. Behind him, Chairman Fernandez and the other 3 vice-chairmen watched all of this in silence. The world government was finally about to make its move. Demon Slayer World, at the foot of Mount Fuji, in a hidden camp within the Okigahara forest. A little giant, with a body size reaching 2.5 meters, wearing a sandy yellow suit inside, a black justice coat outside, and stepping into gleaming leather boots, walked out from the gate of the biochemical safety station. It was none other than Sir Crocodile, with his slick back hair, the current Army Lieutenant General. Following behind him was a handsome man with long, wine-red hair, also wearing a black justice coat. This was Mima Amatori, who originated from the Kabanrai world, the current Army staff officer with the colonel rank. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. As soon as Crocodile stepped onto the ground outside, he casually lit a cigar, then looked at the lush forest environment around him, letting out his classic, drawn-out laugh. A second other world, and a lively one at that. Truly exciting. And I don't even have to see that shark bastard, what a great place. According to the order, in this other world, he was the commanding officer of the army. Even if Bullet came, in principle, he would have to obey his orders, given the same military rank. Of course, Bullet also had the epithet of Admiral Candidate, but this was truly just an honorary epithet and held no special authority in itself. Crocodile wouldn't pay it any mind. Ahem, Lieutenant General, the troops behind need to come in. Mima Amatori, left with no choice, could only remind him. Only then did Crocodile stop his unpleasant laughter and move to the side of the biochemical safety station gate. Thump, 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 thump. Soon, the sound of combat boots stepping in unison on the ground resounded in the ears of everyone in the camp. A stream of army soldiers, 2 abreast, continuously walked out from inside. Each of them was over 1.8 meters tall, with sturdy physiques, wearing night vision goggles on their faces, crisp black uniforms, and exquisite high-top combat boots. They held automatic rifles, with 5 grenades on their left waist, a holster on their right waist, 2 layers of chain magazine belts wrapped around their chest, and a katana with a black scabbard strapped to their back. Truly fully armed. The key was their quantity. The outer gate of the biochemical safety station had stopped closing, solely to allow these seemingly endless army soldiers to pour into this new other world faster. Purr-uru, purr-uru. Suddenly, the sound of a transponder snail rang out. Crocodile, with the cigar still in his mouth, placed it on his palm, then picked up the handset on its back. Hello? The prey has taken the bait, the hunter begins tracking. Got it. He didn't waste any more words. After hearing the order, he directly hung up the call, then took out a white paper slip with a diameter of 10 centimeters from his pocket and placed it in his palm. An interesting situation occurred. The paper slip actually began to move in one direction. Are you coming with me, or staying here? Crocodile confirmed the direction, casually put the paper slip back, and simultaneously lowered his head, looking at Mima Amatori with his narrowed eyes. The latter thought for a moment and said, "The focus of this mission is on the speed of support. It would be better for you to go alone." "Alright, then you're in charge of their arrangement." As soon as he finished speaking, Crocodile immediately transformed into a massive yellow sandstorm and flew rapidly towards the sky to the south. The howling gale blew the surrounding forest back and forth. Below, Mima Amatori gazed at the sandstorm gradually disappearing from sight. Behind him was the gradually spreading black torrent. The last time, his world was invaded, and this time he was leading the invasion of another world. Clearly, as long as he didn't die, such things would only become more frequent in the future. Yamanashi Prefecture. Fuji Yoshida City, This is the central city of the Fuji Five Lakes region. Because many people come to experience the spirit of the Saint Mountain, although the city is not large, the atmosphere is prosperous. Residents and tourists, men, women, old and young, came and went, everywhere marveling at Mount Fuji, which was clearly visible in the distance. Huh, what's that? Suddenly, the crowd admiring the magnificent mountain scenery began to stir and exclaim. The local people who were opening shops or running small stalls on the street followed the gaze of the tourists, their faces full of confusion. Immediately, they all showed expressions of surprise. Below the snow-capped Mount Fuji, at a high altitude of about several hundred meters above the ground, rolling yellow sandstorm was sweeping in like a wave. Sandstorm? Are you kidding me? How could something like this appear here? Is that vast Aokigahara forest fake? And why didn't that Mount Fuji, over 3,700 meters tall, block them? Quick, hide indoors. The citizens, who had never encountered a sandstorm, or rather, such an abrupt sandstorm, were instantly panicked. People began to scatter in all directions, looking for places to hide. Shops started closing their doors and windows, while stall owners struggled to pull their carts, trying to find a sheltered spot. Whoosh, 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 platter, 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 platter. Soon, the overwhelming sandstorm, like the bloody wound of a demon god, swallowed this not-so-large city at a speed visible to the naked eye. The fierce gale swept everything or everyone on the ground that wasn't fixed firmly, all into the sky. For a time, desperate screams rose and fell. Dense, high-speed movement sand furiously battered the windows and doors of houses, simultaneously dyeing the outside world completely yellow and hazy. It was almost impossible to see anything with the naked eye. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Perhaps it was a misconception, but some men and women with sensitive hearing, amidst the howling of the wind and the frenzy of the sand, seemed to hear a strange laugh echoing in their ears. The culprit who caused this sandstorm was naturally the sky crocodile. However, his arrogance and hockey, his blatant rampage along the way, were entirely due to 3 points. First, the focus of this mission was to rush to the location of the Infinity Castle at full speed. Second, through the intelligence received, he already knew that the world's strongest in this world, that so-called demon progenitor, was at most only at the level of a vice admiral. Third, the world government had already decided to fully reveal their hand in the near future, using absolute high-level combat power to forcefully suppress this world. Therefore, he didn't need to have any scruples whatsoever, acting completely as he pleased. Although Crocodile was currently only a vice admiral rank, sometimes a vice admiral and a vice admiral were not the same. Following this, numerous villages, towns, and cities along the way, such as Tsuru City, Otsuki City, Uenohara City, and Fujino City, were all ravaged by large-scale sandstorms. Although they came and went quickly, unlike ordinary sandstorms that would linger for so long, this also resulted in more urgent wind force, causing more severe destruction and casualties. Regarding all of this, the Japanese government in Tokyo, which received the news via transponder snail, simply thought it was a natural disaster and quickly began preparing disaster relief work. Chapter 318, Mesn, Slaughter the World Government Entirely. Captain Guts and Mekko, accompanied by the 12 Kizuki, had just stepped into the mysterious Infinity Castle when they heard a crisp thump sound, like the plucking of a string instrument. But more than the sound, the sight before them stunned the two. Inside seemed to be a brightly lit, ancient style wooden building filled with wooden-framed paper sliding doors, bright lanterns, and long, sloping corridor stairs. Honestly, the first glance was breathtaking. But looking closer, you'd find the structure incredibly complex. No, it should be called chaotic, like a space where dimensions were completely disordered. All the rooms, sliding doors, and corridors were in a state of extreme inversion in terms of direction, position, and even up and down. You could even see buildings and demon figures hanging upside down or sideways overhead. Looking for too long made one feel dizzy. This is the Infinity Castle. Through the transponder snails on their shoulders, the other World Strategy Committee on the Sea Star mainland, and even the higher-ups like the Five Elders and behind the scenes, were treated to this wondrous scene. That Nakaim's blood demon art is truly interesting. If she weren't a demon, I'd really want to capture her and have her add some special effects to my Noah's Arkansas marveled at the screen feed on the projection screen. Inside the Infinity Castle, Captain Guts and Mekko found that they didn't need to move themselves. With a few more thump sounds from a pipe, they were constantly shifted in position, finally appearing on a platform. In the distance stood a pale-skinned, black-haired woman wearing a black kimono, her curiosity and excitement completely unconcealed in her scarlet vertical pupils. Lord Mesn, the targets have been brought. Kokushibo walked over and reported, kneeling on one knee. Well done. Go kneel with your head bowed to the side. The feminized Mizun Kibutsuji showed a satisfied smile to Kokushibo. Yes. Soon, the 6 upper ranks were on the left, and the 5 lower ranks were on the right, all kneeling on one knee, lowering their heads, sandwiching Captain Guts and Mekko in the middle. The scene looked quite eerie. It's worth mentioning that the lower-rank demons who were originally dismissed by Mizun Kibutsuji because lower-rank 5 Rua died at Danjiro's hands, fortunately survived due to the unexpected appearance of Gus and Mekko. From now on, you will answer whatever I ask. Do not speak irrelevant nonsense with your boring will. Mizun Kibutsuji's height was clearly not tall compared to Captain Guts, but her gaze, tone, and attitude were incredibly arrogant and condescending. In response, Captain Guts merely shrugged, indicating no objection. Their current goal was to stall for time, so communication through words was naturally the best approach. However, this guy's aura really isn't that strong. He had, of course, received intelligence about this Mizun. Now, through practical verification with observation hockey, he found that she was indeed not strong to the point of being irresistible, just slightly stronger than himself. This significantly relaxed Captain Guts' heart. Mizun couldn't hear his inner thoughts, as she could only hear the thoughts of man-eating demons. First, answer 3 questions. Where are you from, what are Kabanrai world, and why did you come to Japan? Mizun Kibutsuji asked coldly. Captain Guts and Mekko exchanged a look. We are from the world government, and Kabanrai world are anomalous monsters that also eat humans and drink blood, just like you. As for our purpose here, it is naturally to find you. The one responsible for answering was, of course, Captain Guts. What is the world government, and why are you looking for us? Mizun Kibutsuji, who was currently playing the role of a successful entrepreneur living among humans, had some understanding of the international situation, but she had never heard of any world government. The world government is an international organization with over 170 affiliated countries. We too are members of the New Squad, a direct intelligence department of Cypher Paul. We are here to invite you to join the world government. Captain Guts showed no intention of concealing anything, openly stating their situation one by one. However, Mizun Kibutsuji thought this world government was a recently formed international joint organization by the many countries overseas. So, besides Yukobanrai world and us demons, there are other monsters in other parts of the world? To this question, Captain Guts revealed a smile, but because of the black faceplate, it was completely invisible. Of course. Giant race dozens of meters tall, fishman tribe who can control water currents, mink tribe who look like humanoid animals and can release electricity, Dantida tribe who are small and like elves, snake neck tribe with long, slender necks like snakes, and so on. You and we have never been alone, there are countless anomalous monsters in this world. Heaven and earth can attest, Captain Guts stated that he was speaking the absolute truth. But these words were truly like a mental bomb, stirring up a gale and huge waves in the hearts of Mizun Kibutsuji and the 12 Kizuki. So the outside world is like this. Mizun Kibutsuji had not left Japan for 1,000 years. Because she thought that doctor was a Japanese person who had never been abroad, the blue spider lily in the prescription could not possibly be overseas. Naturally, there was no need to travel to other countries. This resulted in her having 1,000 years of experience, but her understanding of places outside Japan basically came entirely from newspaper content that appeared in recent decades. If that's the case, then I can give you my answer now. I refuse, and from now on, you are not allowed to step into Japan again, because this is my territory. As expected. Captain Guts was not at all surprised by Mizun Kibutsuji's words, because the intelligence stated that this so-called demon progenitor, while appearing very haughty on the surface, was actually a coward. Although she had curiosity, she wasn't very interested in encountering new things. On the contrary, the scale of the world government made her feel apprehensive and generated clear resistance. That's impossible. No one can stop the world government. Soon, our main troops will pour in here on a large scale. At that time, you'll have to interact whether you want to or not. I suggest you make psychological preparations early while there's still a little time. Captain Guts spoke with a seemingly sincere attitude of encouragement. But this also stirred up Mizun Kibutsuji's anger, and a strong killing intent flashed in her gaze as she looked at them. Since that's the case, your crime is punishable by death. As for the so-called world government's main troops, if they dare to step one foot into Japan, I will slaughter them all, completely annihilate them. So, let's start with the 2 of you. Kill them. Mizun Kibutsuji's order caused the 11 demon moons on both sides to attack without hesitation. The fastest among them was naturally the strongest, upper rank 1 Kokushibo. He instantly disappeared from his position. In an instant, dense, bright yellow crescent moons, accompanied by 2 arcs of silvery white, pure wind blades, sliced towards Captain Guts and Mekko at extremely high speed. Moon breathing, second form, pearl flowers and gazing. Humphrey, tempest kick. Seeing this, Captain Gus snorted coldly and directly threw out a bright blue crescent-shaped vacuum slash with a high kick. His attack was a larger and longer, instantly cutting off the two incoming wind blades midair and continuing to fly towards Kokushibo's location. At the same time, the attacks of the other upper ranks also enveloped them from all directions. Upper rank 2 Doma's Blood Demon Art, Winter Ice Pillars. Upper rank 3 Akaza's Blood Demon Art, Destructive Kill, Air Type. Upper rank 5 Jaco's Blood Demon Art, Thousand Needles, Fish Kill. Only upper rank 4 Handu. Due to his special situation, he just crawled over timidly, looking fearful, as if he didn't want to join the combat but didn't dare to disobey Mizan Kibutsuji's order. As for the lower ranks, their reaction was a bit slower compared to the upper ranks. Seeing that it was difficult for them to participate in the attack immediately, they could only patrol and stand guard on the periphery. Chapter 319, CP Captain Nu vs Demon Progenitor. Large numbers of sharp ice pillars falling from midair, and dense poisonous needles spat out by 2 floating goldfish. These 2 waves of fierce ranged attacks were easily dodged by Captain Gus and Mekko with room to spare, thanks to their perception prediction using observation hockey. Only the 6th consecutive shockwave launched from a distance by Upper Moon 3 Akaza forced Mekko to swing the black blade on her right arm to block them. This made her look at her opponent in surprise, noticing a circle of snowflake-like ice blue ray patterns appearing under his feet. Akaza noticed the gaze of the blonde woman, maintaining his martial arts stance with his right arm extended, palm facing outwards, left fist pulled back to his waist, and legs spread in a horse stance. A cold smile appeared on his face as he proudly spoke the name of his technique. Technique deployment. Blood Demon Art, Destructive Kill, Compass. The 12-cornered snowflake array under his feet would sense the target's battle aura like a compass, making his own attack and evasion movements as precise as if attracted by a magnet. Furthermore, the stronger the opponent's battle aura, the stronger the compass's reaction, and the higher the corresponding strength and precision. Both Mekko and Captain Gus, due to their strength, naturally possessed extremely strong battle aura, and neither had the ability to conceal their aura. Simply put, Akaza's technique essentially nullified the evasion effect of observation hockey. Mekko, don't hold back, fight with all your strength. At this moment, Captain Gus, who was fiercely battling upper rank 1 Kokushibo and upper rank 2 Doma with his black armor-covered fists, roared, his voice echoing throughout the Infinity Castle. Understood. The next moment, Mekko raised her left palm upwards, and a jet black strings shot out from her palm, accurately sticking to the upside-down corridor above her head. As the strings retracted, she was pulled up at high speed, simultaneously avoiding subsequent Blood Demon Art attacks. This wasn't all. While ascending, she directly opened her mouth and spat out a purplish-blue energy bullet towards Akaza's position. As soon as the energy bullet left her mouth, it instantly turned into a beam of light, not only blasting through the wooden platform but also penetrating downwards, causing a series of destruction to the corridors, rooms, and stairs below. This was the single-person destruction power of a new form Kabanrai. Don't be too arrogant, monster from overseas. Several after-image were seen flashing back and forth between their respective building at extremely high speed, all targeting Mekko, who was clinging to the upside-down stairs. Upon closer inspection, they were the 5 lower rank, Inmu, Rokuro, Wakaba, Mikago, and Kamanyo. Each of their expressions was filled with excitement. This was in front of Lord Maz. If they performed well, would they receive more rewards? Blood Demon Art, Compulsory Sleep Hypnosis Whispers. Inmu, the lower moon one, leaped into midair. As soon as he got within 10 meters of Mekko, he aimed his right hand, which had a mouth on it, towards her. Sleep. The upper and lower teeth of the mouth snapped shut with a crisp crack, and a translucent ripple spread through the air. Splatter. Suddenly, a black-blue after-image flashed past Inmu like lightning. In the blink of an eye, his head, limbs, and upper body were all severed, and large amounts of foul-smelling thick blood splattered out. How? How is this possible? Inmu's eyes, carved with lower rank and 1, were filled with confusion. He couldn't understand why Mekko hadn't fallen asleep, why his blood demon art hadn't worked. The truth was simple. New form Kabanrai were inherently strong in spirit. Not only could they gather mental power into energy bullets, but they could also easily master observation hockey. His level of hypnosis simply couldn't be effective. Whoosh 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 whoosh. However, Mekko had no interest in providing an explanation. Mimicking Captain Gus's method, she released a net of black strings, wrapping Inmu's severed limbs and body parts layer by layer, then quickly hardening them to seal them in a black jar comparable to steel. This scene terrified the other lower rank. They hadn't expected Lower Moon 1 to be dealt with so easily. What a beautiful head, it's mine for the taking. Just then, Upper Moon 5 Jocko, staring greedily at Mekko's head, finally got serious. Blood Demon Art, Octopus Pot Hell. As soon as he finished speaking, a large number of pink tentacles squeezed out from his pot. Looking at the dense suction cups, good heavens, it was a giant octopus. As soon as it appeared, it shot out tentacles towards Mekko's position. Their winding movements made Mekko feel nauseous. At the same time, Upper Moon 6 Stucky, whose presence had always been somewhat weak, also launched her attack. This female demon, who went by the alias Warabahime at Kigako House and played the role of a Noiran every day, was filled with malice upon seeing Mekko, whose beauty was no less than her own. Because her motto was a knife for those who hurt me, and steal the happiness of those who suffer misfortune, she now wanted to tear apart Mekko's face. Blood Demon Art, 8-layered //